Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to GTSRL Season 37 EU Division 2, Round 1. We're here at Goodwood Motor Circuit for some fantastic action ahead in what is set to be a very close contest between a lot of rather new drivers to the GTSRL community and in a legendary classic British vehicle, which we'll come on to very shortly. But before I do that, I'm your host Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Brit in a Spit, depending on what your media you follow me on. And last night, you'll recall that we had EU Division 1, albeit it was commentated not by myself, but by Tenured Frog, a newcomer to the commentating scene in the GTSRL community. And from what I hear, he did a fantastic job, and he'll be back to commentate EU Division 1 next week, whereas we're going to be focusing on EU Division 2 throughout the whole of Season 37. So, what are we looking at, and why are we looking at some classic cars? Well, Season 37 has followed on from Season 36. 36 was a Group 4 showdown with a good variety of cars throughout. But now we're going back to basics. It's going away from racing cars. We're going away from all those cars with the magical aerodynamics and all the wonderful little additions and all the modern conveniences. We're going back for a blast from the past. And that's why today, ladies and gentlemen, all of our drivers will be bringing out a Mini Cooper S's from 1965. That's right, the tiny little Mini, not the ones made by BMW under the Mini brand after Mini was bought out by BMW back in the early noughties. No, we're going back to the good old John Cooper style Minis of the old times. And well, our drivers have got an absolute beast of a circuit to deal with in the Minis, and that is, of course, Goodwood Motor Circuit. The circuit where you have horse racing alongside a track course, and normally a set of time trials be conducted at this circuit on a yearly basis, known as the Goodwood Festival of Speed. But we're not looking at just a Festival of Speed and time trialing today. Instead, we're looking at some fast and furious action around the circuit for multiple laps. We've got 3 races tonight. So let's come away from our menu screen and let's start to introduce our drivers who are racing the EU Division 2, as we always should. As we just say hello to all of you in the chat and those of you who are tuning in right now, and I hope you're doing well and you've had a good start to your respective weeks. We start off by introducing a driver who is very well known among the GTSRL community, and that is, of course, one Mr. Pies, who's gradually making his way around the circuit right now, just finding his way up towards the final corners as he drifts his way through turn 6 and now come up into the final chicane as he goes very deep and triggers the yellow flags from our marshals, and now throwing the car up into the chicane. Pies, the British driver that we all know and love, racing tonight. And looking at our sheets here, he's not actually listed against the team as far as I can see right now, but he is also our lead steward for tonight in terms of hosting the lobbies. And I get the feeling that Pies will be doing everything he can today to, of course, get a solid result, as he always does. Looking away from Pies then, we now come on to a newcomer within the GTSRL community, and that is Tamer 2010 from Saudi Arabia, also known as Yetel in the GTSRL community chat or on the Discord. A relative newcomer. In fact, this will be his first season within GTSRL, and we wish him all the best on his debut tonight. Running around in the rather fetching little red Mini there, with what looks to be a little bit of anime on the side and the rear of the vehicle. Jetel is part of team number 7. In fact, Tamir is part of team number 7. In fact, a lone driver for team 7, because I cannot see any other driver's name listed against him, and that's why I'm wondering whether Pies is his teammate, but we'll find out that at a later time. But we wish our Saudi Arabian friend all the best as he makes his way into the GTSRL community and starts to put a foothold on his reputation. We then come over to Notnats GT. British driver, another debutant in season 37 today, and in fact a newcomer to the GTSRL community. He is forming part of team number 1, and he will be joined by Zenku Meister, the Polish driver who everybody knows. Some people love, some people would hate for the fact he goes for daring moves out on the circuit, but that's why we love him, because he provides a huge amount of entertainment, and sometimes he does have it all work out for him, and other times it doesn't quite work out as well as it could. Zenku running in the Daft Punk liveried Mini, whereby he's running a tribute to the fact that Daft Punk decided to break up after 28 years of musical creation, which is unfortunate, of course, for those of you within the music industry and those of you who loved a little bit of electronic Daft Punk. But we hope that ZenQ can get a good result tonight and continue to build upon the form that has been grown over the course of 2021. It's crazy to think, isn't it, folks, that we are already a couple of seasons in and we're almost at the end of February. It doesn't feel like it. Now, moving away from team number 1 and going on to team 2, we have the two drivers of Youngster 86, who's currently not here, and we also have LCFC Ben 03, and I believe Ben is out on circuit. Now, for those of you wondering, what does LCFC mean? I get the feeling that probably means Liverpool City Football Club, but I may be incorrect about that. He's going around in the little blue PlayStation 4 GTSRL Mini there. A rather simple little livery, but I like it. I think it's rather neat and goes well with the Mini, and it's a good load of advertising. Also, a little British flag on there, YouTube. It's pretty much got a little bit of everything all over it in terms of advertising. I wonder how much he's being sponsored to drive around the circuit today. But in all seriousness, Ben running around as part of Team 2. Youngster, we're still waiting for him to turn up, and I believe Ben may be a newcomer as well, the number 231 driver here, so we wish Ben all the best as he makes his way around the course tonight and looks to start to set his own reputation. And we say hello to Zoronic and also Pingophone, who are in the chat right now, and we hope that you're doing good. And Kokrenta, no problem, thank you for the positive feedback already, and we hope you're doing well. And indeed, anyone tuning in right now who hasn't said anything but has access to the chat, don't be shy, say hello, because all of our drivers will appreciate it to know you were tuning in. I, of course, will appreciate a little bit of company in the commentary box, albeit it's a lonely life up here, but I digress. Enough about my misery. Coming on to team number 3 then, it is a combination of RN Watt, who we do not currently have at the circuit from what I understand, and his teammate is Insubordinate 73, the German driver, another newcomer in a rather fancy pink liveried Mini Cooper there, and well, wait, is it sponsored by Monster Energy? I'd say that is a little bit of a monster on the eyes, but then again, and in fact he's got a little ultraviolet license plate on the front, the 369 car there. Well, love it or hate it, we hope to see the German driver do well tonight. Indeed his teammate, when his teammate does show up, and I believe that everybody is expected to be attending tonight, just so our drivers who are relatively new may be coming in at the last minute, because they know that qualifying gets underway at the hour, so at 8 o'clock UTC in the evening, but of course we do our stock checks beforehand. Moving away from the Team 3 drivers then, we come to team number 4, and we have the combination of one Jay Lee, who is not currently here at the circuit right now. We're waiting for them to show. And we also have Manu Myrtle, who I believe is also on their way to the circuit. So those two drivers we will not be able to introduce right now, but they make up team number 4. Then we've got team number 5, which is the combination of one Austrian driver, Pingophone. Now, for those of you wondering, where have we seen Pingophone before? You may remember Pingo raced in the Group 4 races back in what was, I think, season 33 or 34, so at the tail end of 2020, and was the one at Bathurst who decided to pick a very different car from the meta, running the Hyundai, and pulled off a brilliant result. And also in the chat right now, the ERA driver here racing alongside Will Becky in team number 5, and we come over to Will, a British driver, who running around, and I believe that Will is relatively new to the GTSRL scene, but may have raced once or twice before, or tried to get into previous seasons once or twice before, but been unsuccessful, but took part in the time trials. But it'll be good to see Will out on circuit, of course. These guys are looking to do as best they can for Team 5. We then come over to team number 6, and we have the combination of Fussy and Fiery, who's currently not here, and his teammate, or her teammate, depending on their sex, will be Spinky Build. Okay, that's going to be a difficult one to say. We're going to refer to them as Spinky from this point onwards, but it's Spinky Biltong, the British driver here, running around in what looks to be like a little bit of a blue Mini with a little bit of the crash test symbols on it, as he makes his way charging up towards the end of Sector 1 here. And in fact, we can see it's the Tag Heuer sponsored Mini with an old style paint job there. And well, Spinky, a new driver to the GTSRL community, door number 91, and we'll see what they can get up to tonight, and we hope that a teammate will show, as we see Youngster has just turned up at the paddock. But that's introducing all of our drivers right now, and we're just going to check our race briefing notes to see if there's anything wrong. So we can see, well, we've heard, folks, that Fussy and Fiery is 5 minutes away and will be joining. We've also got Manu Martel, who's currently stuck at work and trying to get through a traffic jam to get to Goodwood. So he's trying to get here as soon as possible. Fingers crossed for them. We still do have 21 minutes remaining before we get underway with qualifying approximately, so that is good news for all of our drivers, of course, but the sooner they get here, the more we can do start checks and make sure everybody has a good connection for tonight. And I think we can see in the chat right now, some drivers are quite surprised by, well, sorry, not drivers, some viewers are quite surprised by the cars running, particularly Zoronic, who says that the Mini is not exactly the car I was associating with GT Sports. Well, let me give you a quick little bit of history about the Mini and why it may catch you by surprise. So, what if I told you that Mini Cooper, as a British company, entered their cars in the World Rally Championships in, if I remember correctly, it must have been the 70s or the 80s. Don't quote me on the exact year, but Mini did enter a car in the Rally Championships. And now you may be thinking, haha, was it a joke? Did Mini do well? Was it a complete disaster or that? Mini actually did incredibly well. Now, the thing about it is, it wasn't because Mini got put in a class where they're tiny little engines. You're looking at tiny engines in these Minis compared to what other cars were doing the sort of rally at the time. For example, you had the Ford Sierra Cosworth with its whopping big engine doing rally as well. No, the reason why the Mini was so strong is because what you're seeing in Subordinate do here is how the car could hold its apex speeds. The idea behind the Mini is you've got a tiny engine, so you need to work as hard as possible to build up speed. Because it's such a small engine by comparison with a 2-litre engine. I think we're looking at something like, I think it's an 800cc engine, although I'm not entirely sure on the specifics. But what you can imagine is it doesn't have much grunt. But the difference is, because of its small size and its very tiny wheels, what it means is the Mini has got very little drag on it, and also it is a very well balanced car in terms of its centre of mass. It's got very little weight to throw around, it's a very light vehicle. So put all that together, what does that mean? You literally chuck this car at a corner, and you're going to see that time and time again from all of our drivers here as we hop over to the pole of Zen Q-Meister right now. As he comes up towards what is the end of Sector 1 and going to Sector 2, watch as he's going to chuck the car into a left-hander hit, and he's going to throw it in. He's not even going to use the brakes, he's going to toss it at the corner and lift off the throttle. And that's exactly how the Mini was driven in rally. The idea was, where say a Ford Sierra Cosworth would be able to go around a corner sideways at approximately, say, 40 miles an hour, the Mini could go around there without braking at 60 miles an hour and hold its speed out the corner. So that way, whilst it would lose out on the long straights, as soon as it came to a cornering section, the Mini was an absolute monster. And that's the pedigree of Mini Cooper in racing, in the fact that whilst they didn't have the fastest car because it had an absolutely tiny engine, it was a tiny cute little vehicle. The difference was, when it went into corners, you could literally throw the car at a corner. You didn't have to worry about using the brakes because it didn't have enough speed to need to brake. And that's why we're racing the Minis. It's something so different, but such a classic at the same time. And it presents such a different challenge for our drivers. And you can see at the final chicane here, watch how ZenQ literally lifts off and does a light bit of braking. He's effectively applying his own ABS, anti-lock braking system there, going into the chicane to stabilise the car. That's all he needs to do. Whereas if we were in Group 4s, you'd be hammering on the brakes, lifting off the throttle and absolutely panicking. Yep, they won. That is correct, Pingo. They won the Rally Monte Carlo. And that just goes to show you exactly why we've got these cars today. But whilst we've been digressing about Minis and glossing over the overall history of the Mini in terms of its racing pedigree, we now need to come back to some more of our drivers and introduce some more individuals who've finally arrived. So, we introduce LCFC Ben 03, and we'll be referring to him as Ben 03 from this point onwards as he's clocked it off the corner. Ben, as I said earlier, driving for what is team number 2, and he is joined by Jenkster, so the British driver here just parking outside of the end of Sector 1. And he's joined by Jenkster, who is running around in the Castrol liveried, well, the Castrol Heineken liveried Mini, so that is a very different colour scheme, and in fact, that is a rather fetching one with the Welsh flag down the side of it as well. Can't say I don't like that. I absolutely love that livery. I think that's the best one I've seen so far, albeit they're all absolutely brilliant liveries. And then we're going to introduce RN Watt. I believe that's an R and an M, but we'll just refer to him as Watt from this point onwards, who's running around right now. And part of team number 3, alongside Insubordinate, the German driver who we introduced earlier on. A very simple livery there, looking like something out of the original Italian Job movie starring Michael Caine, where you're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off, my son, but you can see running that simple white with the black stripes on there, and I think going for a more classic Mini look. And as we look around the field, as we can see that Watt went very, very wide off of the corner there, but regathers it quite nicely, doing a bit of rallycross. We've got Will Becky, who's turned up in the orange and black Mini, the number 13 Mini, and now running around on circuit, as we did see Will earlier. cute and fetching all the same. And he's, of course, the teammate to Pingo Phone in team number 5. And we're still waiting for a couple more drivers to arrive on the course. And we've got Fussy and Fiery now down in the paddock. We're waiting for their car to be rendered in. So we're just going to hop away from that because GT Sport is a little bit glitchy at Goodwood. Some of you who are GT Sport players will recall that Goodwood has a weird pit glitch where you can actually get cars to end up levitating in the pits and sometimes even sort of mate on one another in the pits. But we hope we don't see that today because that's, one, lewd, and secondly, it's not going to help any of our drivers out if their minis decide to mate and give birth to mini-minis halfway through the race. But we digress. We come away from that. And here's Not Nats making his way around the China-sponsored Mini, the China Mobile-sponsored Mini. We can see on the side of the vehicle there. And we have got 15 minutes to go before we get underway with the qualifying. So in the next 15 minutes, we're expecting to see some start checks as we can see that Not Nat's Mini is sponsored by the Communist Party of China. Oh, I do love the liveries that some of our guys think up. It's absolutely fantastic as he's now on a personal best, making his way around the circuit. And we can see Zheng Hu in practice has already put in a 141.1. And that's similar to times that we did see in EU Division 1 last night for qualifying. And there are questions already rising about Zheng Hu's Mini, whether they've decided to put some sort of modern 1.9 turbo diesel engine in that vehicle rather than its proper engine. And there you go, Zeronic going in with the history check there, looking at the Monte Carlo Rally in 1967. P1 through P3 were all Mini Cooper S's. It's the people's car and it does deliver the people's results. And the people's elbow as well, although the rock can smell what's cooking. And we're just going to take a very quick breather whilst we're waiting. And of course, be sure to let me know in the chat right now who you're expecting to potentially be on pole, as we do hop over very briefly to Fussy and Fiery and introduce them. British driver, who, when we check our race notes here, he is partnered up with Spinky as part of team number 6. Fussy and Fiery on his debut today. Rather fetching British livery there with the Rolling Stones style logo there, the lips and the tongue coming out. Rather nice little colour there, and it's just good to see the Minis going around at such low, well, I say low speeds, going up to 97 miles an hour in a Mini. That is something. Almost 100 right now. Now you may be wondering at this point, okay, so how have we got these Minis set up? Well, they have got 125% of their normal power, so they are not running their stock tune. And to quickly answer your question, well, what is the stock tune like then? We're just going to find ourselves a Mini Cooper. There it is. So, normally, our drivers would have 64 horsepower. Whereas in this instance, if we put that all the way up to 125%, our drivers are running around with 79 horsepower. So they have got tiny, tiny little engines. We'll talk of 9.4 kilogram femtometers. Well, and it's only a 605 kilogram car and it's front engine, front wheel drive. So that's just how light it is, and that's why they don't want to do too many gear shifts. They just want to chuck the car at corners and pray. Well, I say pray, just try and absolutely nail it. But we just hop back to the spectator view for a little bit as we see Zheng Hu just parked up at this point. In terms of the races tonight, we should point out that we have tyre wear on times 29 because our drivers are running sports soft tyres, and these tyres take a huge amount of effort to get anywhere into them, particularly given how light the Mini is, and weight is a huge factor. When you've only got 0.6 of a tonne rolling around at very low speeds and barely any braking involved, well, we're not going to be getting through the tyres very quickly, so we've had to amplify the amount of tyre wear, and thanks to Pirelli for providing us with tyres that decay on demand. Well, actually, I should say Michelin, because Michelin sponsor GT Sport, not Pirelli, correct myself there. And we've got fuel consumption of times 9, but of course in GTSRL, we're not too worried about fuel consumption, and really our primary concern is about whether the tyres are going to last, which it looks though they are going to. Race-wise, races 1 and 2 are sprint races, just to remind you, 6 laps long apiece. And then race number 3 is 12 laps long, where we have that strategic element of the mandatory pit stop. And the grand old question, do you take a fresh set of tyres or not? And looking at the tyre wear that Not Nats has got after what is 3.5 laps so far, He's getting a little bit of wear on those front tyres, but barely anything. I get the feeling that going for a tyre change at the pits today is probably not going to be worth it, given that the pits time lost, if I remember correctly, is somewhere in the region of about 6 to 7 seconds. And around here, we've got the slipstream set to weak, the weak distance being all the way out to 2.25 kilometres, if my memory serves me well. So it's going to be important to stay in the slip and not fall out of it at any point. So we are waiting at the moment for any other drivers to show up, and we've got some newcomers who are just getting used to the fact that everybody needs to be in the Discord right now so they can hear our race control of Pies. And I think in fact that given the fact that Pies has pulled himself out, he may not be racing at all tonight, which would make sense because he's not on my spreadsheet in terms of who is racing and who's not. But we're just really waiting right now, and whilst our drivers go around, we are going to hop on board with Tamer 2010 once he comes to the end of his current lap to see what a lap around the circuit looks like and to introduce to you the different corners at Goodwood. As he's making his way up towards the final right hand, the big extended right hand that is known as Woodcote. Of course, remember, as I said earlier, the whole focus for our drivers here today is about managing momentum. Who's going to be the mini momentum master by the end of tonight in EU Division 2? As M-Watt has left the room, I get the feeling they're probably going to do a quick restart of their IT. But we get underway then by following Tamer around for a lap. So, coming up to the final chicane, it's known as the chicane, literally. And chucking it through the corner. Could have gone a bit wider there, but he'll get that with experience. And in fact, he's coming into the pits, so we're not going to be riding on board for a lap there as he comes into the pit lane. And ZenQ is going for a spinneroonie around the circuit. In fact, RM-Watt has just had a power cut, so he will be back very shortly. And we are going to be missing some drivers tonight, folks. Just had that clarified, so we're expecting 12 drivers to be racing around the circuit as ZenQ decides to show off a little bit. And we try and find a driver who is going to actually give us a lap to take you round. And I think we're going to ride on board with the British driver of Notnas here as the communist mini-mobile takes us round then. And it's our car, not his car, it's our car. So he's going to roll us through the chicane and start our lap. Coming out the chicane then, getting it nice and wide on the exit, not running too wide to put all four wheels beyond. He's going to be gradually building up speed towards turn number one. Turn number one having the name of what is the Madgwick corner. So the idea behind this corner is it is a double apex. It starts off here at the 50 board and then you're coming up to the proper apex right now. And you're going to see full committal and not worried about braking whatsoever in these cars. Can just simply hammer it down. So that's turn one complete. Now he's got a long run up towards Ford Water, which is the right-hander he's about to go through, completely flat out through Ford Water in fourth gear, not having to worry too much about really managing the car here, just letting it run a little bit wide, and now coming up towards what is the complex into St Mary's. So we've got a right-hander initially here where he's going to chuck the car as close as possible to the apex, and then coming up into turn three, it is this left-hander here, St Mary's, chucking it onto the apex, throwing the car. You can see he's got to do that momentum transfer and get it back under control before coming up towards turn four, which is Levant corner. And as he comes up towards Levant here, again, it's a double apex effectively, whereby you want to get the best possible turning on the initial apex, so that way when you come to the second apex, which is now, the idea being that as you come out Levant, you've now got the long straight, known as the Levant straight, all the way up towards Woodcote corner, which is turn number 5, and that completes, well, unless you include the corner here, that completes the main sequence of major standout landmark corners. Levant Straight has, of course, got that left-hander there, and now come up towards Woodcote, which is turn number 6 on the official circuit map. And then, last but not least, as he brakes down here, you're going to see this will be one of the only gears where he's got to apply significant braking force, and he comes down towards third gear, although he could have perhaps stayed in fourth there, and now up into the chicane, he'll be throwing it down to third most likely, or does he just simply stay in fourth? Throws it down to third, and that completes a lap. Thank you, Notnats GT, for taking us around the circuit. So it looks quite simple. But at the same time, whereas at the moment Notnats has just set a personal best of a 142.8, you do have to wonder with ZenQ setting that 141.1, what differences are being achieved between the drivers. And the question is, as we switch over to the Austrian driver at Pingophone, it is all about the momentum management and also knowing when to downshift. Now, I do wonder whether going through Woodcote, whether or not that needed to downshift from 4th to 3rd there, because you would have been able to keep the car more towards its power band compared to the shift down to 3rd, where you've got the manual gearbox, you've got a proper gear stick, proper clutch and everything, and our drivers will have a delay in transitioning between the gears. Again, we've gone back to 1965 right now. We do not have semi-automatic twin clutch transmissions that you'll see on your modern Group 4 or Group 3 race cars. We've got the old school shifters here, the old style manual speed gearboxes. And as Pingo Phone makes his way coming out of Levant, he's now on the Levant straight and charging all the way up towards Woodcote here, and at the moment is holding on to one of the faster laps within the field, but of course it can all change in due time, as we are just waiting to get underway. And as he comes up towards Woodcote, let's see what he's able to do this time. Coming in, you can see he stays in 4th gear, and what that means is he does look as though he bogs down on exit in terms of acceleration, but the flip side is he isn't played to a downshift, which he now triggers at the end of the chicane there, and that's able to give him a lot more momentum through the chicane, and as a result a stronger effective lap. Well, I do say that, and our timing screen seems to show he's got 1:44.7, so perhaps we missed something else out on the circuit. We can see Fussy and Fiery making his way away and around the circuit, although letting Notnats through first. But whilst we're waiting then, be sure to let me know who you're rooting for tonight. Of course, I can't play favourites, but I get the feeling that ZenQ at the moment, based on the practice times, is the favourite. But of course, ZenQ is not going to be alone. There are a lot of drivers today who will be vying to try and get on that podium, if not the wins. And I would love to see how our newer drivers get on. We've got a whole roster of new drivers today, of course. I'd be interested to see how they all get on respectively. And we're just really waiting for race control to let us know if anything else is happening. And we are seemingly experiencing some issues with some of our drivers. But still, we will wait and find out. And in the meantime, we're just going to ride with the German driver of Insubordinate, who is battling a little bit with Jenkster at the moment. Of course, these guys probably getting a little bit of practicing, getting a feel for what it's like racing among one another. You'll notice that Insubordinate is running traction control. I get the feeling that's probably for driver comfort. However, in terms of using traction control here, is it required? Maybe, just to give you a little bit more comfort, but I get the feeling if you can drive without traction control on, you will have a small advantage in terms of pace. Just to explain to you guys and girls viewing from home, what does traction control do and why do some drivers have it? Traction control literally is what it says on the tin. When you put your foot down in the car, obviously you're applying a load of power because the engine that gets fed through the transmission and to the wheels. The idea being that when you feed that power into the wheels need to find traction with the road surface to deploy that power and cause you to accelerate. Traction control is a system which enables that application of power to the wheels onto the road surface to be smoother, to prevent wheel spin, and therefore to ensure that the power is being applied in a sensible manner, rather than what you'll sometimes see is where you get all the smoke absolutely kicking off of the wheels because the car's not getting any traction, and that's how you do burnouts and how you blow a very nice set of tyres on an expensive sports car very quickly, as you'll see normally on shows like Top Gear, Fifth Gear, the Grand Tour, etc. So traction control acts as an interrupter, but keeping in mind how little speed our cars have today, as we can see that J Lee with a 3, so we're going to call him, we'll call him JB, that's easier. JB, who's coming into the lobby right now. We are getting some technical difficulties from some more of our newcomers today, but it looks like we're getting even more people show up right now. That's what traction control achieves, and I think because of how much power these cars have, it's not really needed. And what it will do is it will cause a delay in the acceleration pickup when our drivers shift up a gear. And they go from, say, 3rd to 4th, the car will delay slightly because the traction control system will kick in and say, right, I need to stop the wheels from having all the power applied until they get traction on the road surface. It will, of course, perhaps help with a little bit of tyre wear, but I don't think tyre wear is going to be a huge factor here. But again, I could be proven wrong over the course of the race tonight. As you can see, Insubordinate taking a very, very wide line there through what is St Mary's and nailing it perfectly. And now coming up into Levant, you can see that he's actually really building a lot of pace around the track right now and getting some good lap times as a result. And we are continuing to wait to see who else is showing. as in the meantime we continue to wait. And as we're still waiting and more drivers are still coming in, Spinky right now making his way up towards the start-finish line to start another lap. I think he's had a bit of an awkward one, but consistently in the 145s, which should be pointed out, 145.7s all the way through. So going for another lap right now, so we're going to hop on board with Spinky and analyse what he's doing and how it's perhaps a little bit different from the other drivers. So going through the first corner, absolutely fine, holding down the throttle with full confidence. The man's a devil. And now making his way up towards turn number 2. As we flick back to our notes here, coming up towards forward water. You'll see he takes a wide to inside line here. The best way to do it, you're able to streamline the corner that way and then come up into the right-hander complex that into St Mary's. Going to absolutely nail this one, got to be full of the confidence here. Just simply chuck the car at the start of St Mary's. Very nice. And now coming into the left-hander here, using that sign on the right-hand side to know when to start preparing to brake the car. And going a little bit deep, and the car is into a tailspin. And Spinky catching that car. And I do wonder whether Spinky plays cricket in his spare time, because that was well caught by the man there. And, well, he's parked the car on the side of the circuit because we do have another driver coming through. And I believe it is one Jinkster who's coming through right now. So we're going to hop away from Spinky for a little bit and stay with Jinkster as he continues. The baton has been passed and we stay on board for the rest of Jinkster's lap. So coming out of Levant and onto the straight, and you can see that huge delay in the pickup there and upshifting from third to fourth, and why he's been trying to keep the revs as high as humanly possible in that Mini, because at the end of the day it has such low torque and overall acceleration and barely any horsepower that it really is a case of every single rev matters here. As he comes up towards Woodcote, then into the corner he goes, throwing the car in and staying in fourth gear, tucking onto that second apex curb and nailing it before the chicane. Now does he go early here? A bit of a tight line there which compromises his overall average speed, and he just keeps it within track limits there. Now our drivers have been warned that if they put all four wheels beyond the exit curve of the chicane, they do have to lift when they rejoin the circuit, because you can rally cross your way back onto the circuit and pick up a huge amount of time as a result. A huge benefit, and we don't want that today. But we're just waiting right now for our drives to get set up. We are having some issues with regards to drivers being able to hear our lead race steward, who is Pies. And let's introduce, now that he's out on the circuit, one Mr. JB, the British driver here, running around in a very simple liveried Mini, a little red Mini. And as we check our briefing here, we know that JB is racing as part of what is team number 4 alongside Manu Myrtle. And Manu is not here right now, stuck in traffic still, so Manu may be missing some of the start checks. But again, things are very slow to get underway tonight because we've got a lot of newcomers who are getting used to the way things are run here, which is always good, of course. As he throws the car into Woodcote here, getting it down into third gear, and not carrying as much momentum. The apex speeds we've seen so far, the top apex speeds we've seen through Woodcote are 70 to 71, and we can see Fussy and Fiery there being caught out by the fact that JB is a little bit slow through the final chicane and giving it a nice shove on the backside for good measure. But that's, of course, something that our drivers will start to notice as they do their practice sessions. They will pick up the fact that different drivers are not as fast as one another. And none of our drivers should feel ashamed tonight, of course, about the fact that whether they're as fast as the best guys here or a little bit slower, it doesn't matter. You're here to have fun and just enjoy yourselves. That's what GT Sport's all about, and that's what the GTSRL community wants to achieve for its leagues, is to give you a competitive environment whereby you can have a weekly race and have a good time doing it, and also learn something new. And I'll tell you one thing, I wish I was out there in one of these little Mini Coopers myself right now, because it looks like great fun, but instead I'm stuck here in a stifling hot commentary box on the side of Goodwood Circuit, having to watch the guys instead. Boo-hoo me, right? But we're still just keeping our eyes open right now. And we are continuing to get some issues with a couple of drivers in particular who do not seem to be able to get from the voice comms. And we're waiting for one more driver who's going to be in here. Now we are in what? ready now. We are just counting down. So we've got a peaceful moment. Of course, it's a good time, if you haven't already, go grab yourself some water. And now we are, well, I think we are getting all the technical issues sorted. I think things are on the up. I think we have introduced everyone. The only person that we are still waiting to turn up at the circuit is Manu, who we have yet to see. As Fussy and Fiery is now making his way around the circuit. Now Fussy and Fiery in the Rolling Stones liveried British Mini. Getting a very nice run through the first corner there. In fact, that was a very nice apex speed. Now coming up towards the second corner here. Will he now absolutely fine? I'm sure he will. And as he comes through Ford Water here, now coming up towards the St Mary's complex. Again, now it's all a case of nailing the initial right-hander into the left. Getting up to 99 miles an hour as we get our first start check underway. So start check number 1 is a go. Alrighty, so this is to make sure that all of our drivers can pull away, and you can see by the fact how small the cars are as they line up in their grid slots. There are huge gaps between the respective cars here. All revving their engines out right now, those tiny little 70 horsepower engines. And it's like, oh no, we've got a full start from insubordinate there. So he's going to be delayed on the grid and has to get out of everybody's way as they all get underway. And we've had Aaron Watt rejoin the room, so we're going to have 12 out of 12 drivers here. But they all get underway safe and sound, nobody stuck on the grid there. And as they all come up towards turn number 1, of course this will be the first time a lot of them have raced alongside one another, so they'll be getting used to all the different contact between each other, how drivers defend into turn 1, and getting a feel for what the Mini's like on cold tyres and a full tank of fuel when it is in race trim. And everybody has made it safely up towards Ford Water, which means we now all leave the race and we reset back to do another start check, this time with Aaron Watt in the start check team as well. But from hearing down at the paddock right now, a lot of drivers are getting very feisty and just wanting to get going. That's what I'm hearing, and everyone's happy about the fact that we are kicking off. Of course, I'm happy, but I hope you guys and girls watching are as well. As our drivers all get readying up once again. And we get underway with another start check shortly. One more time. Sorry, every time I see the Daft Punk vehicle, I feel like starting to sing some Daft Punk. Good evening to you, Robert Diviciro, in the live stream chat, and I hope you're doing well, my friend. And hello to Luco33 as well, who's tuning in. I think we are just waiting for everybody. Yep, we're doing another start check, so this is going to involve all 12 drivers this time. And we're still waiting on Manu Myrtle to potentially turn up. And we'll make our 13th and final driver in EU Division 2. So here we go, start check number 2 then, as we come down towards the grid. Let's see if all our drivers get away safely this time, including Aaron Watt. And in fact, we are going to hop towards the back of the field this time and ride on board with Aaron Watt as he pulls away from the line here. You can see that he's trying to get his revs lined up to launch the car as best as possible. And he is stuck. That is very unfortunate for Aaron Watt. The car is not moving, so he has failed the start check, whereas everybody else has succeeded. So that is not good news for the British driver there. That is going to be a technical reset potentially. Everybody else has managed to get away absolutely fine at this point in time. As we can see, Not Nat's going for a little spin there. In fact, a lot of our drivers decided to go for synchronized spins because why not? But everybody is pulling back out right now, apart from JB, who'll pull out very, very shortly. As we cancel that start check. And we see that ZenQ has left the lobby. So we're just waiting for some technical issues to be fixed. ZenQ is just taking a look at that. And we're hearing... The discussion in the Twitch stream chat is about PS5 controllers, about the terrible battery time of the controller, and that there's a lawsuit ongoing in the United States because many PlayStation 5 controllers have broken after 4 months. Well, Robert, I agree with you there. Playing with a cable controller, good old times. That's exactly what I do on my PS4 controller. I've never used it in the wireless mode to play anything competitive. Cable all the way. Well, I say that, I use it for King of the Karts without the cable plugged in, but we'll gloss over that fact. Wink, wink. Yep, so the reason why, if you're wondering, ZenQ has left the lobby, he feels that it is his current Wi-Fi connection which is attributing to RN Watt not being able to pull off the grid. So he's doing a quick restart of everything to make sure that it is not that. And we are, of course, right now patiently waiting for things to get resumed. But whilst we do, as ZenQ returns, I get the feeling that we are going to be seeing... a... Well, in qualifying, it may be the case that some of our more experienced veteran drivers will be putting themselves in the front row, but I get the feeling some of our newer, rawer drivers will qualify quite far up the grid and then use the weak slipstream to their advantage to stay in the pursuit of the higher positions. I don't think it's going to be a case that one driver or two drivers are going to disappear away from the field, but you never know. We are just patiently waiting now for everybody to get underway with all the little minis either parked in the parking lot or running around the circuit as ZenQ leaves the room again. I think it is going to be one of those nights where all the technical equipment goes up the wall. Now, I do worry, ladies and gentlemen, because we've only got access to the car park for the next hour and a half or so, and there is a local parking warden who may put some tickets on the minis if they don't vacate the area soon. Alrighty, here we go with another start check, and this is probably to see whether RN Watt is able to pull away with ZenQ not being in the room. He couldn't see RM Watt. That's just been pointed out to us as well. So ZenQ could not see the British Watt. And this time we're going to hop on board with Notnats, who started in P5 for the purposes of this start check, and we'll be looking to get underway, just revving the engine out as much as humanly possible. And yep, it's a successful pull away for him, as Tamer has had a very slow start. Very dramatic, all the starts here. And everybody has been able to pull away successfully, so this is good news. Now, if we can get ZenQ back in the lobby, then we are going to be sorted, folks, as all the drivers come through the first corner. Ah, that's great to see. Jenkster has decided that he doesn't want to be on this earth anymore and has decided to do some rallycross instead. So we hop out of view in all the drivers. I presume they're all going to be quitting out shortly because we're definitely not racing right now. Well, I think some of our drivers are convinced they're probably racing because they're still going around on the circuit even though they're meant to stop. I mean, it just goes to show the fever with which they're all eager just to get underway. And the start check race has been cancelled one more time. And not Nat's fault that was the real thing and was leading, I'm hearing, down in the paddock. And unfortunately, we are at the mercy now of ZenQ's Wi-Fi, from what I'm gathering. He's having some major issues with it at this point in time. In the meantime, let's ride on board with Jenkster as he makes his way round for another lap of Goodwood. And we've had an interesting thesis from Zeronic in the Twitch chat, which is, with regards to the Mini, it doesn't have brakes. It just has a hole in the floor pan, which, much like the Fred Flintstones mobile, you just put your foot down on the ground and cause it to come to a screeching halt. It's an interesting theory, and I get the feeling, based on some of the stories I've heard from relatives of old regarding Minis and their brakes, that may be the case. Very peaceful right now as Jenkster's just making his way up towards Woodcock Corner, just gradually building speed. I tell you, when we get racing, it's going to be the most gradual build-up of excitement that I've seen in a long while in motorsport, but it'll be worth it. So don't lose faith, folks. I know we've got quite a bit of a delay tonight. We're 20 minutes behind schedule as it currently stands, but we will catch up. We will get there. And when we do, you got a lot to enjoy. As we hop away from the Jenkster mobile. And ZenQ returns to the lobby once again. And it should be pointed out, we do have a penalty burning zone at the circuit. We only have the one, and it is the initial part of the Levant straight as soon as you come out of Levant corner. So, to give you an idea of where it's going to be, Jenkster is going to go into Levant corner very shortly. So it is the double right-hander here, or the right-hander with two apexes, however you want to describe it. And as he comes through here, he goes through the first right-hander, through the second right-hander, and as soon as he comes out this corner and he gets it on the straight and narrow, that's when he needs to pull off the racing line and start to burn the penalty. So he would have burnt it by this point and then resumed racing. And we now have ZenQ, who is back out on circuit. We've got ZenQ back. And it's very likely we are going to be getting in one more stock check as a minimum before we finally get qualifying going. But we'll wait and find out. And ZenQ here just making his way out towards St Mary's right now. Casually building up the speed. And the fastest speed we have seen into St Mary's so far is 99 miles an hour, and we get underway with our last, well, I presume it's going to be our last or one of our last start checks. And he goes for the spin. So as we come down towards the grid once again for another start check, one more time. We have 12 drivers now. We do not have Manuel right now. Oh, sorry, Manu right now. And this time we are going to be staying with our lead driver, that is ZenQ in the pull-off here. And I believe, I'm hopeful, everybody has been able to get away. Yep, everybody has made it away. That's brilliant news. So we have had all 12 drivers go, and so it's very likely we're going to be getting underway with qualifying in short order, as ZenQ is lagging quite a bit. I think everyone's going to have to be very wary of that as everybody starts to return to the pits. I was going to say, what on earth was that? ZenQ just parked himself back on the grid. I think Pies is going to have to remind everyone that was not the real race. Everyone needs to get off the track. Okay, we are underway with qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. So 12 minutes. We're into the action. Who's going to be on pole by the end of it? It's anybody's guess right now. It is go, go, go. And the first driver who's going to be making their way out of the pits and onto the circuit at the head of our pack will be ZenQ by looks of things. Now the question of course will be, where do you want to be in this qualifying? Well, you're not technically allowed to use the slipstream of another driver to benefit your lap, so it's very likely what will instead happen is that our drivers will try to space out, and it's in little packs of drivers. We're going to have Notnats who's with ZenQ being at the head of the pack, and I think they'll space out in such a manner. As we can see, we are missing a driver for some reason right now. We've only got 11 drivers out on circuit, but I'm sure that'll be resolved. We can see all our drivers feverishly making their way around the circuit as Notnats drifts his way from St Mary's there and coming up into Levant. Going a bit wide there, and behind him he's got Youngster who is getting closer and closer, it should be pointed out. But we do have the issue of Insubordinate who's just sat in the pits right now, and I'm wondering what's going on there. But still, we'll look away from that for the time being. But we do seem to be missing a driver. And it is going to be ZenQ who's going to be the first driver who kicks off the... Well, no. Insubordinate is now coming out of the pits and going around on the circuit. So perhaps just trying to get himself some space. I was getting very worried there, to be honest with you. And it's going to be ZenQ then, who we ride on board for our opening hot lap. He'll be the first driver around. So kicking off then, and Jay Lee is just about to head out onto circuit as well. So coming across the line, starting the lap in fourth gear, build up a good amount of speed right now, and coming into turn one, Madgwick corner. Taking a rather tight line through the first corner here. And, well, getting a very nice line as a result of it. Perhaps losing a little bit of speed because of how tight the run into the first part of the apex was. But that's neither here nor neither at the moment, as he's now coming up towards turn number 2. And it's a very simple pass through turn number 2, going through Ford Water before coming up towards St Mary's. Building up that speed, getting good speed right now, 99 miles an hour, just tripping onto 99 and 100. So ZenQ really pushing the envelope here, and coming into St Mary's, going to flick the car to the left as hard as possible, pulling on that steering wheel as if it's an anchor and nailing it before coming up towards Levant. Getting a little bit of latency there, causing the direction of the car to be off angle. Now coming into Levant corner here, getting the braking nailed on and down into third immediately, using that downshift to provide a little bit of engine braking before going up into fourth at the start of the run onto the Levant straight. And now he's got the long run all the way up towards what is the Woodcock corner. And now it is a case of just simply having the patience and believing that you've done everything right so far, and with 2 corners to go, trying to nail the next 2 corners as if they are a matter of life and death. And coming up into Woodcock, can he nail it? So getting a nice entry apex there. Now going on to the main apex, running it perfectly. Perhaps could have been a little bit more aggressive with the apex, but again, that is splitting hairs. And at the chicane, looks as though, well, that's a lot of latency, but he's finally settled himself down and got himself connected, and Zenku is across the line with 141.5, a very strong opening lap. Notnat's behind him right now, coming across the line with a 143.7. Youngster in the Welsh liveried Mini with a 142.5, and then we've got Tamer, the Saudi Arabian driver here, who is coming across the line right now, and it looks as though it's going to be approximately a 146 of some description. It's a 146.8, and we've got Will Becky, the British driver here, with a 149.8. Pingophone, the Austrian driver, already making a little bit of a promotion into provisional P6 or provisional P7. Now there's more drivers going through with a 148.4. And then we have got RN Watt, who has been able to set a 143.1. And a good opening lap there by the British driver. And then we've got Spinky, who has set a 146.3. The Tag Heuer Mini showing what's worth and keeping well with time. Behind them then, so we've also got Fussy and Fiery, who set a 209.9, but I get the feeling that Fussy's got a lot more under the tank and he's just had a bad opening lap, or used the opening lap to really get those tyres warmed up. And we can see that we have had Ben 03, LCFC, Ben 03, get promoted into provisional P5 or 145.5. The only other driver right now, apart from Fussy and Fiery, who's probably not to set an indicative lap, is Insubordinate, who has completely cut the opening chicane there. It's all gone horrifically wrong for Insubordinate. I'm not sure what's happened there, in fact, but he's coming towards the end of a lap, and this is going to be quite a poor lap. But then again, because of that mistake, it's completely understandable. A 147.4, albeit that is a bit faster than some other drivers. JB coming around. And remembering JB was the last to come out of the pit, so we're going to stay with the British driver for a little bit longer as they're making their way up towards Levant Corner right now. Up in towards turn 4. Coming into the double apex right-hander. And bringing the car in very nicely here. Smooth on that throttle, not carrying as much speed as some of the other drivers we've seen so far, as he upshifts it into 4th gear, as he comes out the corner here, charging up the Levant straight right now, and we do see some drivers jumping into the pits to get a fresh set of tyres on. Zenku not improving, and that provisional pole not being challenged so far, we should say. We're just going to stay with JB as they come to the end of their lap. So 2 corners to go. Woodcock first. Bringing it nicely into the corner there, a little bit wide of the tightest possible line, and you can see as a result he's had to re-correct the steering as he's gone through, but kept it together nicely. And now the final chicane, a bit deep initially and not carrying as much speed. In fact, downshifted to second now has cost him a huge amount of time. I think this is going to be somewhere in the region of a 155 by looks of things. 153, 54, and it is a 55.9 for JB. So last provisionally right now, 6 seconds down on Will Becky. Now, meanwhile, up front, it is Zenku, who's still leading just under a second off of P2 with Jengster in P2. And you can see that Zenku is not improving on this lap right now, maybe looking to do a bit of fuel burning. We've still got 5 minutes of the qualifying session remaining, mind you, so it's a good time for our drivers to burn some fuel and then go out there and do a full attack lap. Jengster in provisional P2 right now with a good gap to P3 of a half a second. RN Watt still holding on to that P3 by half a second over Notnat's GT, who is in P4 right now with 143.7 and almost matching, improving that time on their second hot lap as they come to the end of their third hot lap, and this is looking like an improvement to a 142.5. So only 1,000th off of provisional P2 in challenging Jengster. So Jengster has got some work to do to beat the Commucar Mini, the Communist Mini. Oh, I cannot get over that, in all honesty, folks. I absolutely love it, but we'll stop there. As we can see, that Tamer has got it very wrong going out of the chicane, then gone into the wall. But RN Watt, meanwhile, getting a very good run, and this is looking to be a strong lap from the British driver, and it's going to definitely be an improvement to a 142.0, and that is provisional P2 for RN Watt, only half a second off of Zenku. So the challenge is coming to Zenku, albeit with time. As we also see that the German of Insubordinate, who goes wide out of Levant Corner, has improved to 144.1, albeit with that rally cross there, they won't be improving on this lap, or if they do, that lap will be disallowed. But still, Time is of the president, and with 4 minutes to go right now, the field is constantly changing. As we can see, ZenQ is currently on another lap. It does not look to be an improving lap right now. And we're just waiting to find out who is going to be improving on this lap. Does ZenQ improve at all as he comes to the end of Sector 2? He is improving. He's on a personal best and going purple, so he is going to be beating his current provisional pole lap if he absolutely nails this final sector. So he's coming through Woodcote, seems to have got that absolutely nailed on, spot on, and now coming up to the final chicane, very close to the inside wall there, but just about nailed it and kept a lot of momentum. And I think ZenQ here is going to be pushing the yardstick just a little bit further away for RM Watt and Youngster. And he comes across the line 3/10 faster at 141.2 now is provisional pole, with Watt 8 tenths down. And it does look as though he's going to be making a sweep of pole position here, does ZenQ, as Watt is on a build-up lap right now and is not on an improving lap. Youngster, meanwhile, in P3 does improve to 141.8 and actually goes provisional P2, 2 tenths ahead of of RM Watt, and closing the gap to ZenQ's provisional pole lap. The gap between P2 and P1 now 6 tenths in terms of overall time, and these gaps have been pretty consistent right now. Perhaps this is indicative of what we can expect in the race in terms of pace, but of course there we've got the weak slipstream to deal with, and we can see that Pingo Phone right now trying to chase after P4, not Nats in that P4 position at 6.5 tenths up the road in terms of the lap time, and Pingo just not quite having as much momentum through the final chicane as perhaps he'd like to, and this is an improvement by a tenth to 143.1, and it does close the gap and pull him a little bit further away from Spinky in that provisional P6. Spinky, meanwhile, as we can see, we've got just 2 minutes remaining in the session. Spinky on his way round, and I think what Spinky's trying to do here is get 2 more flying laps in, going to nail this one and then see what he can do on the final lap. He's got the time to do it, and I should report further down the order, Fussy and Fiery has made it up in towards provisional P8 or 144.7. We've got Will Becky up into provisional P9 or 144.8, so the gap between himself and Fussy and Fiery only a tenth, as LCF Ben improves to what is P10, and Tamir 2010 improves to a provisional P11, the Saudi Arabian driver there, who's not short of our camera angles every so often. And we can see that Will right now really pushing the envelope, and Pingo getting ever closer. And I think this is just a coincidence that Pingo is right at the back of Will. And the question will be, of course, who is going to give way for the other driver? And I think Pingo getting that tighter line there, it's going to be awkward because both drivers are on an improving lap, but now they're racing each other effectively up the Levant Straight. And it's a case that they can't settle in behind one another because otherwise they'll be deemed to have gained an unfair advantage through slipstream. So how's it going to play out here into Woodcote? Well, Pingo's going to hold that inside line, but I don't know if he's backed out of it. We can see that Will is half a second up on his previous best, in fact, and, well, it looks like Pingo decided to back out of it. That's great sportsmanship by Pingo there, as we've got yellow flags waving at the final chicane, so somebody's had a bit of an off earlier on. All 30R marshals just like waving their flags, and Will coming out of the chicane then could have perhaps carried a bit more momentum through there, but still was a very nice line. And does he improve from that 144.8? It is going to be a 144.2, improves by 6 tenths up into provisional P8, and Tamer right now sitting in provisional P9, only 2 hundredths behind. But meanwhile, in the hunt for pole position, as everybody's now on their final lap effectively, bar the driver who's coming up towards Woodcote right now ahead of ZenQ, they'll get one more lap in most likely, although I may be wrong on that. It's going to be very tight. ZenQ doing everything he needs to right now to get that pole position, and even improving even more despite the tyres being heavily worn here. So ZenQ is going to be the first driver to complete their qualifying session. Although I should point out, we do have a driver in the pits, and in fact we are going to have a driver who finishes their qualifying ahead of ZenQ. We'll come back to who they were later on, but everybody's been told to finish their lap right now. So ZenQ coming across the line. Is this going to be an improvement towards the 140s? I mean, it'll be close. If it is an improvement to a 141.248, so improving by just under 300. Now we've got Jenkster coming up, and we do have another driver coming to cross the line right now, and Youngster into the wall at the chicane, so he will not be improving, so that opens the door. But what is staying off the circuit, so he's not improving either. Not Nats right now, coming up towards the end of the lap to complete it. Will this be an improvement to a 141? Not quite, but it's improved to a 142.4, securing his provisional P4, I think, as Pingo is on a personal best right now, so do not count out the Pingo phone. as we can also see ahead of him, Will Becky is current towards the end. So we're going to stay with Will initially and then hop back over to Pingo. Will on a 144.2 so far, and it doesn't look as though Will's improving. In fact, he's made a bit of a hash brown of the chicane there, and I think that's cost him the time he needed to improve. He's coming up to the end of the lap then, and it is not an improvement, so we hop over to Pingo, and does the Austrian driver improve? He improves to a 142.7, and that secures him P5. Have we got anybody else coming through right now? Spinky's parked up, Subordinate's parked up, Will obviously going sideways there. We've got Tamer who's coming to the end of his current lap, so Tamer on a flying lap, and this is not an improving lap. We can see on our time screens there, so Tamer's qualifying is over, and will be in P9 at best, and we can see what looks to be Ben behind LCFC Ben 03, who is coming to the end of his final qualifying lap. Will this be an improvement from the 145.5? And it is not an improvement. So that means all of our drivers have now completed their qualifying, and pole has gone to Zenku Meisterwell, 141.2. He'll be joined on the front row by the British driver of Youngster86, over 141.8, so 6 tenths between the two in the end between the pole and the Brit. RN Watt and Notnats GT will be forming up our second row, being very close between those guys. And then the third row will be started off by the Austrian of Pingophone, who is joined alongside by Spinky Biltong, the British driver there, joining the Austrian. And then the fourth row will be started off by Insubordinate 73, the German driver, who just out-qualified by 1/10. Will Becky, the British driver, will start alongside him. The fifth row will be started off by Tamir 2010, the Saudi Arabian driver, who was half a second faster than Fussy and Fiery, the British driver there. And then our final row will consist of LCFC Ben, and we do also have JB, who's just sat in the pits right now, and we do need him to get out the pits to know what lap he's done, which is a bit of a problem right now. So when I think JB has qualified last based on times, but that is how it's going to be. That is our qualifying order, and well, given the fact that Zenku was able to out-qualify Jenkster by what was in the end a total of 6 tenths, the question you've got to ask yourself is, will this translate into Zenku just running away and dominating? Well, again, Week's slipstream has a range of 2.25 seconds compared to Real's 0.75. So I don't think that's going to be the case, and I think it's more that what Zenku will have to do is essentially manage the expectations and just simply nail his laps. He will gradually pull away over the course of each lap if he's up front and able to essentially hold on to that position, but he's got to be careful of the fact that because we've got so many acceleration zones here where drivers do not have to brake hard, particularly in the run all the way from what is Madgwick all the way up in towards St Mary's, that long run there alone is going to enable the drivers behind him to get a huge gain in time. But of course the drivers behind do have one problem with weak slipstream, and that is they will pick up not only an overspeed, but they will also experience an extreme amount of dirty air, which in these minis sounds odd, doesn't it? Dirty air in a car that's made more for passenger convenience rather than motor racing in this modern day and era, you could argue. Well, the thing is, with that dirty air, it could be enough to throw a car off the circuit, and Jenkster and Watt are needing to be aware of that. But we also have Pingo, who's called in to say down from the paddock that his optimal was a 141.9, which is very unfortunate for the Austrian. That would have put him all the way up into what would have been P3. But I think Pingo will know that they've got the pace on tap and they might be able to bring it into the race. So it's not all over, and of course we've got 3 races coming up. But I'm going to take a quick sip of water because we're sure to be getting underway in the near future. As we get our time of day change, and we will be getting underway with race number 1 very shortly. But whilst we're waiting, we're just going to hope that somebody takes their car out onto the circuit so we don't get the potential camera glitch. And we wish good luck to all of our drivers, of course. And well, we've got Zane Q who's going around on the circuit for us. Much appreciated, Mr. Zane Q. But we are just waiting now for the countdown. And all our drivers will be itching right now to get underway, as we are approximately 25 to 35 minutes behind, sorry, 25 to 30 minutes behind schedule right now. But of course, things happen, but all of our drivers will be chomping at the bit to get racing, surely. As we say hello to Jerry, a race car driver. We're just waiting for the countdown now, as we see LCFC Ben 03 just parking up at Madgewick. And we're waiting for everybody to ready up to race. Now, we've had, to be fair, just to clarify why we're quite a bit behind schedule, we've got a lot of newcomers tonight driving who have had some technical issues and also just getting up to grips and up to speed with things. It's not a case that Pies is can and the string internet has held us all back or anything along those lines. We have had some connectivity issues, but they've been resolved. It's mostly been just people getting up to speed. Yeah, and everybody's readied up, so we are just waiting for the countdown. To be fair, when you've got a load of new drivers, that's the way it is. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Race number 1 is about to get underway. 6 laps. Who by the end of it will come out on top? It's anyone's guess right now, but we'll wait and see. So as we draw down towards the grid, on your right will be Zenq, on your left it's Youngster, behind them RN Watt and Not Nats GT. But watch out for Pingo Phone in P5, who's got a lot of pace on tap. What can they do from P5, the Austrian? And also, will Becky back in P8? It's lights out and away they go, and our drivers all getting relatively good starts, though Youngster did bog down a little bit, it should be noted, in the opening launch sequence there, and it means that RN Watt has already started to gain a bit as JB is the last of our runners off the line. We can see that as they come up in towards Madgwick Corner for the first time of asking, it looks like everybody's settling down into a little bit of an order, although Not Nats and Pingo are already going to war through Madgwick, and Insubordinate and Spinky doing the same as well behind, 2x2, hurrah, hurrah, as Noah's Ark goes, and we can see ahead of them, meanwhile, we've got our driver starting to cluster up a little bit with RN Watt getting the slipstream of Youngster, but he's going to be on the outside going up into Ford Water and then subsequently into St Mary. So the question will be who's going to be out on top as they come through the corner, and ZQ already feeling the effects of that weak slipstream. It means he can't pull away from these guys immediately, and you can see that RN Watt has got ahead, and behind Not Nats has made his way up into P4, and Pingo is having to defend against both Insubordinate and Spinky as Spinky goes a little bit deep there, and I think there was contact as Fussy and Fiery comes fiery through and almost goes into the back of both Ben and also, well, not Ben, my apologies, into Spinky and also Will, but just about collects it in time at Levant Corner. And now as they come through onto Levant Straight here, you can see LCFC Ben has found his way up into P9, and Spinky is now trying to come back at everybody, build up as much speed as possible and charging up towards Woodcote Corner. And as they all come up in towards Woodcote, then you can see that RN Watt is continuing to gain on ZQ, again ever closer. Will he go for the move here with the momentum he's got? I don't think so, but meanwhile behind, Not Nats up into P3 right now, ahead of Youngster and Pingo, as Youngster's got it very wrong, but just about rally crossed it across the apex of the corner and lost 2 places for one mistake, and Insubordinate is now trying to come up in behind him, as you can see Fussy and Fiery into the wall. So after one lap it is ZQ Meister ahead of RN Watt. Behind them it's Pingo Phone in P3, Not Nats in P4, Youngster in P5 ahead of Insubordinate in P6, then we've got Will Becky in P7, LCF Bedo 3 in P8, then we've got Fussy and Fiery losing a position to JB very shortly by looks of things in P9 and P10, and then we've got Tamage 2010 in P11, and last but not least right now is Spinky in P12. But as they come up towards Ford Water for the second time of asking, then you can see that ZQ doing everything he needs to right now just to pull a gap open, albeit with that weak slipstream, that gap will start to close, but it'll be very gradually, and Watt is condensing his position and having to keep an eye on the fact Pingo is now starting to build some momentum. Behind them you've got Not Nats, who is just doing everything he needs to right now to hold on to that P4, and Youngster, the one who started second, it should be pointed out ladies and gentlemen, now all the way down in P5 and having a very difficult opening couple of laps, it would seem. But of course there's a lot of distance to go yet. A Youngster in P5, Insubordinate behind him is probably thinking right now he just needs to settle down, get a rhythm going, and then come attacking back later on in the race. Behind him Will Becky in a bit of a no man's land right now. He's broken the toe from LCF Ben, who's behind. But in fact, by doing so, he's been able to get away from Ben, and Ben now finds himself at the mercy of having no slipstream, and JB will be chasing after him very gradually. As we can see behind them, we've got Fussy and Fiery just burning his penalty, and now getting back underway, and he's going to fall back into the clutches of Tamer 2010 and Spinky very shortly. Up front, meanwhile, it is ZQ who's continued to pull away from the rest of the pack, as we can see our top 3 running after one another, and it looks as though Youngster's gone very wide with a huge overspeed into Woodcote Corner there, and that means that Not Nats has got back in front, but we're going to have to take a look at that very shortly. But we're going to stay with what's happening right now, as Insubordinate is going to drag race against Youngster up towards turn 1 on lap number 3, and I think Madgwick Corner is going to be Insubordinate, because he's going to have that inside line, and he's got the momentum, and he's going to chuck the car into the corner and just simply nail it first time, and that is brilliant. And the fact Insubordinate just keeping it a nice clean race and seemingly getting it right all the way round. Let's take a look at what happened. So as we jump to the onboard, then you're going to see that Youngster had a huge amount of momentum here, and I get the feeling he was caught out by the sheer volume of the speed he picked up from having the toe of Not Nats, because he's coming up towards the corner here, he's going into Woodcote, and was there contact between the two drivers? No, it just looks as though he's got it very wrong, because the car's just simply gone flying through the corner, and by carrying so much momentum, that's what's happened there, or at least that's what we can see from the camera, as now we flick back to the racing going on, and ZQ picking up a half-second penalty, which you have to burn, but he has got a 4-second lead over RM Watt right now, so I don't think he's too worried about that. But we know ZQ can make mistakes which lead to race wins, guaranteed wins being put in the bin. We saw that back at Le Mans a few seasons back, and RM Watt now in a battle against Pingo Phone as the two little minis drag race all the way out the Levant Straight here towards Woodcote. And who's going to come out on top? I think RM Watt has done enough right now, but remember, because ZQ has burned that penalty, look how that gap has dropped by 1.5 seconds as they come up towards Woodcote Corner here, and Pingo now going for the inside line here into the corner. Will he be able to do it on the brakes? And Iron Watt holds on for now, and Pingo thinking better of it, deciding to save it for a later date as Iron Watt goes a bit wide there, as does Not Nats. And in the rear view camera shot there, Will Becky almost getting it very wrong there. All sorts of wrong, in fact, as he went sideways initially, and then Subordinate not carrying any momentum out of the final chicane, and Will now up into P6. They keep changing every lap, I swear. JB, meanwhile, behind, 6 seconds down the fighting there, but ahead of Fussy and Fiery right now is 1.2 seconds behind as they come on to lap number 4. Fussy and Fiery only 1.3 seconds ahead of LCFC Ben 03, and then we've got Tamir 4.8 seconds back, just ahead of Spinky right now in the battle for P11. Now, as we come back towards the front of the field, we can see that ZenQ not having to worry too much, albeit he is pulling away, and I think that's because Not Nats and Pingo are, well, Not Nats has got ahead of the 3 drivers here, and something must have happened because we can see that Iron Watt has formed a bit of a lollygag or Karts here, and in fact he's dropping positions left, right and centre. What on earth has happened between these drivers? So we can see that Iron Watt, that's what happened. So Iron Watt went wide, and that cost him some momentum, and that's how Not Nats has caught up. But then what's happened with Pingo? It looks as though Pingo's this. There may have been contact between the 2 drivers that we didn't quite see there in the replay. So Pingo being very respectful there, as was Iron Watt. Both drivers making sure not to impede other drivers. And that means Not Nats, the Communist China Mini, is now up into P2 and trying to hold on to that second place on the podium with 2.5 laps to go. Youngster behind, however, has got something else to say. The Welsh Dragon versus the Chinese Communism. Who will win? And then you've just got the little orange Mini of Will Becky chasing after them. We're going to have to wait and see who's going to be on the podium out of those 3. But of course, we've got a battle, 3-way battle for P5 behind, with Pingo and Iron Watt both faster than Insubordinate in qualifying, and Insubordinate's having to defend from a reverse Moses from 2 drivers here, and Pingo and Iron Watt are trading places right now, and you can see that Jig's still going for the move on the inside up into the final chicane and just about nailing it there, but that was so close, and there's been a disaster. What's happened to Pingo and Iron Watt? Let's take a look and find out. So as they're coming up in towards Woodcote then, we saw this on camera in the fact that Watt and Pingo ended up going side by side here, and Pingo got the advantage, but then coming up in towards the chicane, what happened between these 2 as they went into the corner? Well, Pingo got it wrong and glanced the wall, and then Watt simply didn't have time to react and essentially caused the Concertina effect off of the back of Pingo Phone's car. So it's an innocent incident there, folks, but Pingo having his race go from good to bad to worse, and it's going all sorts of wrong for Pingo right now. Oh, goodness me. But meanwhile, up front, one driver who it's not going wrong for right now is ZenQ, 7.5 seconds ahead of Youngster, who's battling with Not Nats, and you can see that they're both side by side come up into St Mary's, and Youngster holding it. Oh, and he's going wide, and he's going to lose the car a little bit, but he's going to come back on, but that's not a position converted. And Will is going to go for the move up the inside into Levant, and he's got it done. And you can see in the rear view camera shot, Insubordinate now sees that there's blood in the water, and he's going to be sniffing after Youngster's exhaust right now, and Not Nats, meanwhile, not getting a good run out of Levant, which means all 4 of these drivers are going to cluster together, and Iron Watt just in the rear of the camera there chasing after them. So they're all coming together once again, and anything could happen with only 1 lap to go after that, as we see somebody is off at the final corner, and it is JB. What on earth has happened there? So coming up to win towards Levant then, there was contact between Pingo and JB got knocked, and the car has spun as a result of it, and I think Pingo, well, didn't expect that to happen as JB is trying to get the car turned, but it's proving very difficult. But Pingo is waiting for him as ZenQ is making it onto the final lap right now. And we can see that really now with ZenQ holding on to the lead, it is a case of Not Nats holding on to P2, or will he be able to? It's a 5-way battle for P2 on the final lap, and Youngster is already making his claim for P2 by trying to go around the outside into Madgwick Corner, and I don't think that's where you want to do it, Youngster. You want to back off there because you've lost so much momentum, and now you've got the Mini of Will Becky on your inside coming up towards what is Ford Walter. As we see, JB has had to retire the car. That is very unfortunate for JB. Well, Will Becky, meanwhile, up into P3 for now, but Youngster will definitely be coming back at him. And you can see that Youngster is trying to just simply keep the car solid right now. He's got half a lap to go after St Mary's, and Will Becky has gone very aggressive into St Mary's, and that's cost him a huge amount of momentum. But Will, in return, has got the momentum on Not Nats right now, so Youngster can't make any progress. Not Nats defending for his life up into Levant. avant corner, and you can see that Notnats is doing everything he can with the far camera shot, and we've got a half-second penalty for two drivers for both Will and Youngster. That's a disaster, and that means Insubordinate's now going to be up into P3, potentially on the straight here as Will burns his penalty, and it's going to be side by side as coming towards the end of the race. It will be ZenQ who will flish back to shortly, but Notnats doing everything he needs to right now to hold on to P2, and Insubordinate up into P3, and coming out of the final chicane, it is ZenQ who picks up the first race win of the night, coming across the start-finish line to complete the race. Congratulations to ZenQ, but behind it will be Notnats who holds on to second place in race one ahead of Insubordinate, as there's been even more contact to the rear view shot, as we can see Insubordinate coming home in P3. Well done, that man. Will back in P4, Fussy and Fire in P5 after RM Watt, Youngster and LCF Ben 03 all got it wrong. Well, no, sorry, Youngster and RM Watt got it wrong, and LCF Ben coming home in what will be a P8. What a crazy ending to the race. And then behind these guys, it's going to be Spinky from the United Kingdom coming home in P9. Tamir 2010 coming out of the final chicane now and making his way up towards the start-finish line to complete the race in P10. And coming across the line there, and then it's Pingo who, after waiting for JB, who had to retire the car by looks of things, the Austrian driver has had a disastrous race one, but he knows he's got a lot of pace to be unleashed. That was an absolute nightmare scenario where JB just couldn't get the car out of the gravel trap, and now Pingo had to pay for it, being the gentleman, of course, by waiting. But of course, we've got two more races to go, and Pingo will know that. Pingo's an experienced driver in the EU divisions and will be looking to make up for what has been a disastrous race one in races 2 and 3. So as he comes through the final chicane to complete the race and complete the race order. We can see it's an angry little mini in the form of Pingo, but here he comes, and that is our race order complete, ladies and gentlemen. Race 1 complete, and congratulations once again to our Polish winner, ZenQ Meister. Well, that was an absolutely mad race number 1. And as we take a look at the race results there, we can see that obviously subject to any stewards' inquiries, our top 5 consisted of our race winner, ZenQ Meister, finishing 11.8 seconds ahead of Notnats GT, and then Insubordinate at the last dash, P3 there. A fantastic result for the German driver on his debut in season 37 and his debut of GTSRL. P4 went to Will Becky, and P5 went to Fussy and Fiery after a disastrous final chicane for RM Watt and Youngster. Well, and the fastest lap on the final lap went to a 1:41.653 as set by our race winner, ZenQ. And now we wait for race number 2 as we make sure we save the replay. And I need to take a quick sip of water, folks, because unfortunately my voice almost went. Oh, goodness me. But be sure to let me know what your favourite moment was in race number 1. For me, it was just how it all kicked off and the 5-way fight for P2 right at the end there. I mean, Insubordinate with the absolutely clutch moment where just that consistency paid off and has put the German in P3 for race number 2 as well. What with the fact we do our grids based on the finishing order of the previous race. Well, what a result for the German driver. We're ready, we're just waiting out for race number 2 to get underway. And some questions are just being asked at the moment with regards to the slipstream settings that have been used on the race, because we're racing with weak. That was absolutely crazy, folks. I do tell you. Now we're just waiting for confirmation of when race 2 is going to get underway, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for being a little bit quiet. Cars are all parked up at the moment, so we're not actually moving anywhere right now. As we get our change of time of day. And in fact, slipstream has been changed, so it was on real before, I think, and now it's got up to weak. So we will be seeing our drivers most likely going out and trying to get to grips with the fact the slipstream has now been upgraded from real, which was 0.75 seconds back. So sorry about that, folks, for the slight technical irregularity. Now that slipstream zone is 2.25 seconds in length. Now, one thing you're probably wondering as well is, with the slipstream zone being much larger now, does that mean the overall benefit of the slipstream is greater? Well, not going to put it down to an exact science here, but the short answer is yes, you will build up speed gradually as you get closer and closer to the car behind, but because you've got a bigger zone to build the speed into, you will gain more. And we just received word, unfortunately, we will not be seeing any more of JB tonight. JB has retired the car, and by the looks of things, will be retiring from all of the races tonight. But we'll let you know if anything else emerges. But that's unfortunate to hear, so we will be continuing the show with 11 drivers for the rest of the evening, as Not Nats and Ironmore are battling up through Woodcote this time. Okay, race number 2 is about to get underway then, folks. Place your bets now as we get some more frantic action. And Not Nats and Iron Watt do not want to give each other any space. So as we come down towards the grid, once again, it's Zenku on the right and Not Nats on the left. Behind them, this time it's Insubordinate and Will Becky. But keep an eye out for Aaron Watt and Youngster back in P6 and P7. They'll be looking to make their way up the field, and Pingo starting in last place in P11. it's lights out and away we go. And Insubordinate having a very strong start by comparison with Notnats here, and also having the benefit of the tow off of ZenQ's car. And you can see that Notnats has immediately responded by trying to get into the slipstream zone of ZenQ's Mini ahead of him. And in fact, these two drivers going side by side already up into Madgwick, and riding with Insubordinate here, you can see that he's taking that wide line. He's going to try and cut himself back into the tow of both drivers, as we can note that Will Becky holding on to P4 right now, but Aaron Watt already getting a very strong start and making his way up into P5 and chasing after Will Becky. So we're going to resume from where we left off in race number 1, folks, as Yegster is also up into P6, and Spinky Biltog has made his way up into P6 alongside Yegster as they're coming up through Fordwater and now towards St Mary's. So these drivers all 5 in position already, and Pingo is up into P8 and charging as Fastly and Fiery is falling down the order, and it's all side by side and kicking off with Will Becky up into P3, having got past Insubordinate. Aaron Watt following him through right now, but Insubordinate making his way back in ahead, and they're all coming up towards Levon. Oh goodness, close your eyes as Pingo, where on earth has Pingo come from? He's up into P5. He's just charging through the order here, and they're all knocking each other about as if it's a little bit of British touring car. And it's great to see all the little minis clustering together as they're making their way onto the Levant straight. And the driver who's lost out the most of this is Tamer 2010, who's down in P11 right now and 4 seconds back on everybody. But as they're coming up towards Woodcock Corner then for the first time of asking, you can see ZenQ just doing enough to stay ahead of Notnats right now. The Chinese Communist Mini here in P2 ahead of Will Becky as they all go charging into Woodcock, and everybody just about making the corner, albeit Insubordinate going very wide. And well, oh goodness me, and Spinky Bitbong has got it very wrong, and there's cars everywhere, there's minis everywhere. What on earth is going on as Spinky has spun out? And so that means after 1 lap, it is ZenQ Meister ahead of Notnats, followed by Will Becky, then Pingo Phone and Fussy and Fiery in P5, LCFC Bedo 3 in P6, ahead of Insubordinate, who's just dropped down the order so far in P7, Aaron Watt in P8, Tabir in 2010 in P9, and then it is Yegster in P10 and Spinky in P11. And we're going to find out very shortly, folks, what on earth happened back there. As we can see in the rear view camera shot, Insubordinate going wide out of Madgwick Corner and being attacked into Fordwater by Aaron Watt. And Watt having the run here on the driver, making his way up the inside and coming up towards St Mary's now. It looks as though the move is done, and looking further up front, Notnats this time, and not letting ZenQ get away with the change of slipstream. And talking of change of slipstream, you can see Fussy and Fiery getting all sorts of Fussy and Fiery going through St Mary's, but keeping it under control there of a bit of daft rally cross as he comes up towards Levant here, and you can see the dirt on the tyres is not deterring him from chasing after the guys up front as they're all coming out of Levant onto the straight. And well, we have got a 5-way fight for the race lead right now, with Notnats chasing after ZenQ and keeping the pressure on, but ZenQ doing everything he needs to in the corners. And in fact, it should be pointed out that Pingo has lost the momentum, which means the battle for P4 is going to fall away from the battle for the lead right now. As we can see Pingo and Pingo and Fussy and Fiery going side by side up into Woodcock. Pingo holding inside here, but Fussy and Fiery go around. There was a tiny bit of contact as, well, it looks like Fussy and Fiery cut off the front of Pingo's car there and has gone very deep as a result of it, but he's kept it under control and he's bumped into the wall, and that has sent him off to Narnia as he dodges the pit barrier there, and the pit signage there. And Fussy and Fiery trying to go for the hold onto P4 and losing out on Pingo, who now starts to make progress up towards the lead. Meanwhile, we can see that Will Becky has got himself in front of Notnats going up into Madgwick Corner, but I get the feeling that with these two fighting, it's going to enable ZenQ to start to run away from these guys as we go a little bit deeper into the race and we start to get to the halfway point, with the fact we are on lap number 3 of 6. Pingo right now still chasing after the two in front, and Fussy and Fiery, well, falling away from Pingo. A sensational rate of knots. It is going from good to bad to worse for Fussy and Fiery. As we can see coming up into St Mary's, we have got Will Becky and Notnats almost side by side, but Will doing everything he needs to right now as they both drift through the corner, and Notnats getting very sideways initially on Apex there, but keeping it together, and Pingo is charging after these guys. The gap dropping to 3.1 seconds now. It is coming down at a rate of knots as the Austrian driver knows he wants that podium. Behind them, Fussy and Fiery trying to do everything he can to catch up to Pingo, and then it's LCFC Ben, who's 1.7 seconds down in P6. They're in a bit of a quiet race, it should be pointed out, as Oren Watt is trying to find his way up the field, and then Subordinate in P8, 5 seconds down and 5 seconds ahead of Youngster. Youngster now up into P9 after everything that kicked off, and speaking of everything that kicked off, let's find out what happened back there on lap number 2. So, coming up towards Woodcock Corner then, on lap number 1, coming up towards the corner then, all of our drivers were together, but what exactly kicked off? We can see that Youngster coming up to the corner, and it looks as though everybody made it through safe and sound, although Spinky went wide, and did that trigger off a Constantino effect? It did, because Spinky went to the side, and everybody got propelled in towards the wall, and that's what kicked it off, and then some other drivers, such as Sport, that just got it wrong at the chicane, so that's why everything happened the way it did. It was because Spinky went wide and caused a chain reaction effectively. I don't think he meant any harm, folks. The car just simply snapped away on him, carried too much momentum through Woodcock Corner, but meanwhile, Not Nats chasing after Will, and Will holding that gap at 8 tenths right now as they come up towards Water here, and Not Nats doing a very solid job, given it's his debut here. Just to simply hold on to the podium right now would be a sensational effort from the British driver, although he has got the fast charge in Austrian Pingo phone, catching up to him very gradually. That gap now down to 2.4 seconds, and the only reason it's increasing is because we're on a straight, and Pingo phone does not have the slipstream, whereas Not Nats does. Meanwhile, Ben in P5, hold on a second, where did Fussy and Fiery go? He's got it wrong somewhere, because we can see that Fussy and Fiery has dropped all the way down the order, and now LCFC Ben 03 is up into P5, but he's got the fast charging Oren Watt coming after him at a significant rate of knots, going from power units here to speed units, nautical speed units. My physicist teacher would be angry at me, as Fussy and Fiery is chased after and going very wide out of St Mary's. But meanwhile, up front, 2.1 seconds ahead and still pulling away, just enough to keep the slipstream zone at bay. It is Zenku Meister, who's doing everything he needs to right now to get a back-to-back win, as we can see that Will Becky is ahead of Not Nats, but it is closing, and will Not Nats go for a move here, or recognise that there's no need to fight until really the final lap, and these two should work together, as Will gets it very sideways through Woodcock and just about keeps it together. But of course, every time he makes a mistake and has to slam on the brakes to curb his momentum, Not Nats is going to either have to stay behind or find a way past rapidly, and you can see that because both drivers have lost so much momentum through Will getting it wrong there, particularly in the final chicane. Look at Pingo phone, the little angry Austrian Mini is on a charge, and that gap is coming down now thanks to the fact he's into that slipstream zone, and Not Nats is going for the move on the inside versus Will Becky. Standard move here, and both drivers giving each other enough space, and Not Nats, I think, has just done enough here to gain what is our position, as the Communist Party of China would say, as they're pushing him on right now. The whole of China's behind him, and Will Becky has got the momentum versus Not Nats, and he's coming back ahead in front, as Zenku is now 4.3 seconds up the road, and Pingo is sniffing the rear of these drivers, albeit 7 tenths behind. LCFC Ben holding on to P5, but he has got Oren Watt, who is coming after him at a very, very rapid rate of closure, and I think it's going to be a case that Ben is going to be giving up the position soon if he doesn't defend it up into St Mary's, and I think Watt's already going for the move before St Mary's, and he's going to swing it back across the front of Ben, and he's done it, and Fiery is going to come through as well, going around the outside here, and Fussy and Fiery doing it well. I think Ben has decided, you know what, I'm not too worried about getting a top 5 position, so long as I bring the car home, I'll be pleased with myself, and to be fair, Ben's doing a fantastic job. Why not stick to that mantra? But meanwhile, up front, we can see in the battle for P2 as we ride on board with Pingo Phone here, who on the previous lap set 141.5. The man is on a mission and was almost setting the fastest lap on lap number 4. We can see that Not Nats and Will Becky battling once again. Will hasn't quite got the momentum, but he may go for a lunge on the inside. But Pingo's just surveying things right now, and he's going to go for it as he almost clatters through the back of Will's car there and just about holds it together. But it's getting so close between these three, and we've got one more lap to go. As they, oh no, and Will and Pingo have both hit the wall, which means Not Nats is going to be able to pull away briefly. That's a disaster there from Will and Pingo. I think Will hit the wall just simply because he got it wrong, and Pingo glanced the wall, but he's got the momentum, so he's going to be in the pursuit. And most importantly, Not Nats has broken the toe to both of them, so Not Nats just doesn't need to make a mistake right now, and he's going to hold on to P2. As we can see, Will leaning on the inside of Pingo's rear right-hand side panel there, and Pingo, meanwhile, doing everything he can. I think Will lifted off there because he recognised that would have been a bit of a push to pass, as they're all coming up towards Water right now, and behind them, meanwhile, it's Oren Watt versus Fussy and Fiery. These two will not leave each other alone. The two Brits battling to be in the top 5, and Fussy and Fiery going to be up on the inside on Water, and as he comes into St Mary's, he will find himself going back to the outside, but we know he has got such a brilliant command of the track grip, going through St Mary's right now as he cuts the apex there on entry into the first part of the complex. And will that be a penalty as he goes for the cutback? But what covers it off? What placing the car perfectly there to counter his fellow countryman, and he's putting it on the inside and making Fiery go to the outside. But you can see Fussy and Fiery looking for every which way past. He's going for the cutback out of Levon, and he's going to get the momentum as Watt tries to shut the door on him, but he can't do it in time, and it means it's there side by side. It's now a drag race, and Fussy and Fiery has got the lead in the drag race slightly with the momentum. But meanwhile, up in front, I'm happy to say, folks, it's not that still in P2, and Pingo Phone ahead in P3, and enough of a gap to Will Becky, I think, to hold on. But coming out of the final chicane for the second time, it will be Zen Q-Meister who picks up the win in race number 2. Behind him, it'll be Not Nats, who comes home in a well-earned and well-deserved second place as he brings it across the line. And what about P3? Well, it's going to go to Pingo Phone. The Austrian driver had made a huge recovery drive. Will Becky in P4. And behind them, it is RN Watt, who finishes ahead of Fussy and Fiery, who comes home in P6, just ahead of LCFC Ben 03. And then it's going to be Jenkster, who's coming home in P8, ahead of Insubordinate, who's had a very difficult race. And he'll have to go back to drawing board. And it will be Spinky Biltong, who's going to be coming home at the end of our top 10. With a difficult race for Spinky as well. And then last but not least of our drivers, it will be Tama 2010, who's drifted his way through Woodcote right now. The Saudi Arabian, showing us what the Saudi Arabian drift machine can do, of course, as he makes his way through the final chicane and then completing our racing order as he charges down towards the start-finish line. Just give it a second, he needs a bit of time to get there, but he finally crosses the line, completed our racing order. And congratulations again to all of our drivers, but most importantly, congratulations to our race winner, Zen Q-Meister from Poland. So we can see, subject to any stewards' inquiries, here are your final standings, folks, from race number 2. Zen Q-Meister taking back-to-back wins. 9 seconds ahead of Not Nats GT, who had to put in a Herculean effort to hold off the fast-charging Will Becky and Pingo Phone. But in the end, Not Nats did just enough to make sure the fight stayed away from him and earned that second place, finishing at 2.3 seconds ahead of Pingo Phone, who rounded off our podium. Keep in mind, Pingo Phone started P11 for this race after the difficulties in race number 1. P4 went to Will Becky, a well-earned result there. P4 will be a bit disappointed that he missed out on a podium, but he worked very hard. And RN Watt coming home in P5 after what was an up-and-down race throughout. Fastest lap went to Fussy and Fiery, who finished P6 in the end on lap number 5, or 1:40.894, the fastest lap we have seen in race conditions to date, and faster than our pole lap in qualifying. That first lap, though, I think our stewards are just going to get report after report with regards to that first lap. It all kicked off. And, I mean, I don't want to put blame on anyone, but it looked as though Spinky was at the heart of what triggered that concertina of carnage through the chicane. And we've still got one more race to go. That's the crazy thing. But to be fair, everybody's owning up to things. I think Spinky's owning up to Jenkster for the fact that he sent Jenkster flying. And it's all good. It's all positive. I tell you, these drivers are going to have to calm it down because I'm losing my voice at this rate. But whilst we wait, then we have one more race, and now we come on to the strategy race, the 12-lapper. And the question will be, what do you do? Well, given the fact that our drivers are being quite aggressive to the tyres, I may have actually been incorrect, and some of our drivers may opt to change tyres. It may be the viable thing to do, because you've got weak slipstream here, which means your zones for picking up the toe off another car are much greater than the real, and it means that drivers can't necessarily pull away that easily. So going for a tyre change in the pits may be the smart thing to do. But now we're just waiting really for the final race of tonight. And I get the feeling, in terms of when do you pit at the midpoint, do you pit at the start, do you pit at the end? I think for a good number of our drivers, because of the fat tyre wear, does seem to be something which is a bit of a concern as we flip the time of day. Oh, it's a 7:45 in the evening. I get the feeling a number of drivers will be pitting probably around lap 4 to 7. If it was personally me, I'd probably pit on lap 5, just simply because the car is going to be lighter on fuel at that point, so I probably can get more life out of the second set of tyres if I go for a tyre change compared to the first set. That's something our drivers will have to figure out, because remember, 100 litres of fuel amounts to about 100 kilograms of weight added to the car. And all that weight is factored into the tyre wear model as worked on by Polyphony Digital and Michelin in GT Sport. And as much as we would love to have you out on the grid, Robert, unfortunately I'm not permitted to invite you into this lobby because I don't think you're in EU Division 2. As we get underway, ladies and gentlemen, with race number 3, here we go. It's coming at you, 12 laps. It's late in the evening. The headlights are on. The cute little mini headlights are on. Let's get underway. So as we come down to the grid one last time, then it'll be ZenQ on the right and Not Nats on the left hand side. Behind them, Pingophone and Will Becky. But watch out for Youngster all the way down in P8. What can he do given the fact that he's got a lot of form? He just needs to find a rhythm. And it's lights out and away we go, and all of our drivers are getting a much cleaner start this time in terms of being able to pull off the line. And it looks like Pingo already trying to go for a little bit of a preliminary move on Notnats, as if to say, look, I'm coming through, you're just going to have to deal with it. And Pingo trying to hold to the outside as they come up in towards Magic Corner here, and he's going to throw it around the outside of Notnats, but Notnats is coming back because ZenQ is pulled to the inside, giving Notnats the slipstream here. And behind him you can see that Will Becky having a good run, and Aaron Watt already in P5 and trying to charge after this group. And it looks as though with everything that's happening in this little cluster, Fussy and Fiery in P6 right now is starting to fall a little bit back from our race leaders. So we've got two little packs forming and we're not even half a lap in, albeit that's just simply because of the way things have started off. As we can see, 5 of our drivers all going up into Ford Water and following through into St Mary's right now, and it is ZenQ who's leading them all through, followed by Pingophone after Notnats. And well, Pingophone doing everything he needs to. I think we've had one driver who's disappeared off into the shadow realm and is rejoining right at the back of the order. I saw at the bottom of the camera there, and we're going to find out what happened to them shortly. And it is Fussy and Fiery who seems to have done the magical disappearing act and rejoined all the way down in P10, and we're just going to see what happened there to Fussy and Fiery. So coming up into the corner where it looks as though as we ride on board initially and we hop the camera to the exterior, did he just simply try to go around the outside? And I think there was some contact of another driver, and that's why the car's been sent flying. But as they all come up towards the Woodcock corner then for the first time of asking, it is ZenQ who's going to lead them in, and Notnats really up ZenQ's backside this time. But I think ZenQ is just starting to settle down as all of our drivers are drifting in and all expecting the tyres not to offer any grip, but they're all being caught out by, oh, there's minis everywhere. Oh, it looks as though they've all made it through. And Youngster, oh no, and it's a disaster again for Youngster at the chicane, as we see already one driver is into the pits, and Pingo is into the pits on lap number 1. Now, I'm not sure whether that was planned or not, but what I can tell you is after one lap, it is Notnats who's got into the lead ahead of ZenQ, and then it is MWatt who's in P3 right now after everything that kicked off back there, which we will take a look back at shortly. It's Will up into P4, then Tama 2010 in P5 with everything that kicked off, and it's Insubordinate in P6, LCFC Ben in P7, Youngster in P8, Fussy and Fire in P9, Pingo in P10, and Spinky Biltong in P11. And did Pingo go for the tyre change? He did. No, he did not go for the tyre swap, so he just simply went for a pit stop. But whilst that's all going on, let's see what happened from Tama's perspective when Langston got it wrong. So riding on board then with the Saudi Arabian, what you're going to see, watch up front at the front of the camera, he cuts the final corner, but that's just a little innocent mistake. But you can see how Youngster has already got it wrong up ahead, and this causes a huge domino effect where there's minis going flying everywhere, and Tamer's just sort of, okay, if everybody's made a mistake here, I'll just come through, I guess, and he's just got all the momentum. So one little mistake from one driver seems to kick off a chain reaction as Tamer's got it wrong somewhere, and he's rejoined. I say that, literally commentator's curse. And I think he's gone off the set. Yep, he's gone wide up at Levant corner and now rejoined as... Well, my goodness me, my apologies. As we can see that Notnats has fallen back a little bit here in the battle against M-Watt and ZQ Meister. So whilst we were looking away at that, ZQ is back in the lead. And RM Watt right now chasing after our race leader. Now, in terms of when they'll pit, well, we've already had Pingo pit very early by comparison, and we can see Wilbecky in P4 as all our drivers are coming across the line to complete a lap, and it's Subordinate going wide out of the final chicane there, and I think unless he keeps doing it, as long as he doesn't keep doing that and gain any time, he'll be alright. But well, he's got to keep that in mind as LCFC Ben 03 is coming alongside Fussy and Fiery right now, and I think he's going to have the move on into turn 1. Is he going to get it done into Madgwick? And Ben hasn't quite got the momentum to carry it through, and Fussy and Fiery just simply holds that outside line, takes the natural racing line and says, you know what, we'll keep on going. Meanwhile, behind Pingo Phone already back up into P8 and Youngster in P9. And of course, remember, Pingo's already pitted, so it's in his advantage to gain as many places as possible right now and close down the leaders as Speaky Bultog in P10 has got Tamer all over his backside in the battle for P10. Up front, ZQ has pulled away a little bit from RM Watt, who seems to have gone wide there. And in fact, he's lifted off and rejoins. I think RM Watt got it wrong going through St Mary's there, and we didn't quite see what happened. We missed that off camera, unfortunately, and Will Becky is falling further and further back. But Will, right now, could do with just being in a bit of a quiet space in P4 to consolidate that position and not end up in a fight. As we can see, Fussy and Fiery has picked up a bit of a penalty as it's all kicking off behind for LCFC Ben, who's fallen further and further back from Fussy and Fiery and has now got Pingo coming fastly up his rear end. And well, in the meantime, it's Youngster who's had to fall back a little bit with everything that's going on, and Spinky and Tamer are getting into the mix. But we look back forward and we can see that LCF Ben is under attack here from Pingo, as Pingo is going to try and go around the outside where it looks like he's going to position himself on the outside, potentially for a cutback into Woodcock corner, but he will have to break it early to go for that cutback. And will Ben be wary of this? And Ben is wary of it because he's covered it off on the inside. Well collected by Ben there. That's great defensive trying as Tamer goes charging off the circuit there in the rear of your camera shot, drifting wide there, and Fussy and Fiery getting a nice drift out of the final chicane. All of our drivers making it through safe and sound, including Tamer, although he's lost a little bit of momentum, but Spinky's lost more momentum as Youngsters into the pits on lap 3. At the end of lap 3, and Spinky now being under threat from Tamer, as Tamer's going to go to the inside here. A little bit of contact between the two drivers. There might be a bit of a latency issue, but Tamer's going to have to move up into Madgwick corner, and Spinky's going to have to try and find a way back. As we can see that Pingo, ahead of these two, is not past Ben at the moment. Ben is doing a very good job of holding on. Meanwhile, up front, ZQ has pulled away for Notnats, who once again is in a battle with his fellow countrymen in the form of RM Watt. And Watt drifting it through St Mary's in a front engine front wheel drive car. To get that much oversteer, you've got to be going some sun, and he definitely is indeed. As you can see that Watt right now all over the back of Notnats like a bad rash, and that's enabling ZQ just to simply saunter off into the distance. And of course ZQ will want that very much so. Meanwhile, in P5 and Subordinate just having a peaceful time here, much like what we said earlier. With Will Becky who's in P4, both drivers just simply finding themselves in clear space and not under any threat, and we can see that Fussy and Fiery is under assault from Pingo. Pingo haven't got past LCFC Ben. We did catch that on camera, but what we do catch on camera is the fact that Pingo is on a mission right now to get past the Brit, and the Austrian is doing everything he can to give it all the juices, and the fact that he's already pitted, and he's got that in mind as he goes to look for the outside here, coming up into Woodcock corner, and he's got the momentum. I think this is going to be done just before they get to the braking zone, albeit I say that it looks so Fussy and Fiery is going to commit all the way into the corner, and as Pingo tries to chuck it around the outside, Fussy and Fiery makes the defensive play here, but he's just not got enough momentum to hold off the Austrian driver, and Pingo is now up into P6 as they drift through the final chicane for the 4th time of asking. But Fussy and Fiery is coming back as it looks as though Pingo got it wrong, and into the pits comes Ben. But of course Fussy and Fiery has got to be wary of the fact that every time they fight right now they are costing one another time, and most importantly Fussy and Fiery is costing himself. Time versus the Austrian here, and he's probably not thinking about that in the heat of the moment. He's probably getting a rush of blood to the head, and he's instead thinking, you know what, I'm just going to try and fight this guy with all my heart. As we can see, meanwhile, in the battle for P2, Not Nats and Iron Watt coming up towards St Mary's once again, and it's a battle into the corner, and Not Nats holding that inside, but Watt going for the cutback and drifting it on the apex curve, collecting it nicely, and what a brilliant bit of driving there from Watt to throw the car on the cutback and get it nailed on the apex curve to grip it nice and tight. And it means that Iron Watt is now up into P2, but he's got to be careful about cutting Levon, because he's done that previously, I think, and picked up half-second penalty, and he almost cut it again there. But there's plenty more action still to come in this one, folks. It's not over by a hair's width yet, as we see Pingo and Fussy and Fiery still battling, and Fussy and Fiery going very deep, and he just collected it. Oh, goodness me. Fussy and Fiery literally throwing everything at Pingo to try and stop him from getting up into P6, including the kitchen sink, and it's just not worked out there, but he will be coming back eventually, but he's falling back for the time being because he lost so much momentum by going so deep into Levon. So Pingo will be grateful for that and be hoping he can just break away right now, because with all that fighting, he's losing time. As we can see, Aaron Watt is losing time at the final chicane. He just went a bit deep there, I think, caught himself out as he jumps into the pits, and Not Nats is up into P2 once again. But of course, remember, Not Nats hasn't pitted yet, ZenQ hasn't pitted yet, and Will Becky has not pitted yet either. But meanwhile, Aaron Watt has, and where's this going to bring Pingo out versus Frosty? Frosty, Fiery. And we can see that, well, it looks as though Fussy and Fiery is in P5, but meanwhile, in terms of who's coming out the pits, we've got Aaron Watt, who's... Oh no, that's a disaster for Aaron Watt. I think Aaron Watt is stuck in the pits and he can't get out. He's experienced a pit glitch here because it said he's in the lead. Well, we're going to have to wait and find out, folks, but I think your race leader right now is ZenQ. It is not Aaron Watt because of what's happened, but we have experienced the pit glitch here at Goodwood. We didn't want that to happen. That's a disaster for Watt. He's just stuck there. And Not Nats in P2 right now. Wilbeck in P3. And Pingo Phone in P4 ahead of Fussy and Fire, who has fallen back with everything that has happened. I'm just trying to catch up with what's going on, folks. And we can see behind them Edsamord and Spinky in the battle for P7. Okay, so we're being informed down at trackside that it's very likely that Watt is out of circuit, but we just can't see it because of the pit glitch. Which is so, we're just going to have to, well, we're going to have to figure out what happens at the end, folks. Sorry about this. Youngster in P8, well, in P9 right now, but it's going to get very confusing. We'll just try and follow the action that we can see then. So, we know that ZenQ is up in the lead right now, and ZenQ into the pits as well. And as he makes his way in, will he be going for a tyre change? That'll be the question that's on everyone's mind. He does go for the tyre change, and Not Nats into the pits as well. Now, Will Becky stays out a little bit longer, so where does this bring Will out in relation to ZenQ and company? Well, ZenQ is in the lead now after pitting. Will is in P2 right now. Obviously, we've got Aaron Watts somewhere out on circuit, we assume, because we're not hearing reports down in the paddock that he's stuck, so he's likely out on circuit. We'll try and figure out where he is, the invisible driver. Not Nats is up into P3 by the looks of things. Aaron Watt is dropping down the order, but that's because we've got a glitch timing board there. So he's somewhere, most likely, I'd say, Aaron Watt in the region of P4 to P5, as we can see that Spinky is continuing out on the circuit and just trying to push the car as hard as possible after all the pitting and whatnot. Youngster, meanwhile, is running around, having recently pitted in P6 and chasing after Spinky and trying to make the move up into Footwater. And I think he's going to get it done here. It's going to be a simple move up the inside as they come through the corner here, and now he'll consolidate it up into St Mary's. So it's going to be a standard move, and as they come into the corner here, what we can see is that Will Becky, who is ahead of ZenQ right now, but Will has yet to bit, as she pointed out. Will is using the momentum to his advantage, and I think ZenQ's decided to let Will ahead, and in fact he's flashed his lights. I think ZenQ's trying to send the message to Will, look, don't worry about defending, just run your standard racing line, because I'm not going to be attacking you, because I know you're in a different race. But then ZenQ is now coming up his inside there. I think he's noticed that Will has not got enough momentum to stay ahead for too long, and so ZenQ is going to throw it past and promote himself back up into the race lead before Will finally goes for his pit stop. Not Nats in P3 right now, chasing after Will, of course, and ahead of Pingo Phone, and Aaron Watt is somewhere in the mix of that, although we don't know where. Pingo Phone in P4 by the looks of things right now and chasing after Not Nats, and the gap is low enough that he is within slipstream range. And then Youngster battling with Spinky as they went up into turn number 6, and now they're going into the chicane. And Youngster and Spinky constantly swapping positions right now. It has been a difficult race for Youngster. It's been a difficult evening for him, and I think he's now trying to get this best possible result. As we can see that ZenQ is still going with the little annoyance of Will behind him, and I think Will's just trying to go as long as possible here to use ZenQ as a bit of a slipstream tool here. I think he wants a slipstream partner, and he feels that ZenQ is giving him everything he needs as Insubordinate comes into the pits from P8. And we'll be coming out somewhere around the region of P9 with Tamir, as we've also got Fussy and Fiery. Oh no, we have got cars stacking up in the pits. Oh, this is getting bad, folks. Well, we've got 2 pit glitches, so we're going to focus on what's going on here. We've got ZenQ in the lead ahead of Will Becky. And Will is losing time to ZenQ very gradually, but not at a rate where Will is losing the slipstream. So this is really helping Will out, as we can see that Not Nats has got Pingo Phone getting closer and closer to him. And Not Nats right now really in a bit of a difficult position because of the fact that Pingo pitted so early, but he will have the more lively tyres. He'll have the better tyre life compared to Pingo, who, if we bring up the information, we can see Pingo has shredded his tyres by comparison, but of course he's been on these tyres for a lot more laps than has Not Nat, so it would only make sense. So the thing for Pingo is he's now got to size up trying to make an overtake on tyres that are heavily worn and are not going to offer the grip into those right hand corners in particular, and he's got to be aware of that, particularly at Woodcourt and also the final chicane. As we see, Will Becky is into the pits and potentially joining the lewdness in the pits of some of the cars, as we can see that Pingo charging after, and Will has come out the pits in P4 on Ask Greens, but of course it could all flip over in terms of the final order. But that releases ZenQ to run away with this one from what we gather. 8.9 seconds up the road from Not Nats, who is feeling a huge amount of pressure from Pingo Phone as we speak. And we ride on board with Not Nats' car and look back from him. And we can see that Pingo right now, I think what Pingo is trying to do is effectively size up Not Nats over the course of the next couple of laps, but also not to try and fight him too hard too early on. Because if you're in Pingo's shoes right now, I suspect he's more concerned about the fact that if they fight too early on, then they potentially will cost one another too much time and will fall backwards. But I say that, and now as we look to the exterior cameras, we can see that because of Not Nats having a bit of a bad run up through St Mary's, it means that as we go through Levant Corner here, Pingo is trying to go for that cutback, but he didn't have the momentum to do it. And as they come onto the straight right now, it is a rinse and repeat, and they're going to be following one another around the circuit once again. Behind, meanwhile, Will Becky just simply holding on to that P4. The British driver too far away to really close up on anyone right now, but by playing it along with ZenQ, he's moved himself into a very nice position and can now just focus on getting the result home. And Spinky in P5 battling with Youngster still. These two have been battling for some time. But as we come up towards Woodcourt then on the 9th lap, it is Pingo Phone who's trying to chase down Not Nats and just not able to get anything done right now. But he's getting ever closer, and I think a move is due in the very near future between these two drivers. I think Pingo will go for it with 1 or 2 laps to spare. As we look further back, we can see that Will just making his way around the circuit right now, and Spinky still ahead of Youngster, but it is getting closer and closer. We're just going to quickly hop through the order, folks, of the cars that we can see. So on lap number 10 right now is ZenQ ahead of Not Nats by 11.5 seconds. The British driver just holding off Pingo Phone, the Austrian who pitted on lap 1, so on some very heavily worn front tyres at the moment, but he's holding on to P3. Will Becky in P4, 7 seconds down the road, but 8.8 seconds ahead of Spinky Bouton, who is in turn 8 tenths ahead of Youngster, and these two are battling for P5. We've then got LCFC Ben 03 currently sat in P7, quite a way behind Youngster but quite a way ahead of Insubordinate. The German driver here in P8, and then we've got Tamir 2010 who is a further 5 seconds down the road from Insubordinate in P9, and then we've got RN1 and Fussy and Fiery somewhere out on circuit, but their car models are mating in the pit garage right now, I'm very sorry to say. And as our drivers are making their way up towards the Levant straight once again. We can see that Notnats is doing everything he needs to hold off Pingo, and Pingo, as I say, I think he's just biding his time and getting ready to lay the move on. And Youngster is now ahead of Spinky. We did not see that on camera, folks, so it looks as though he got it done in the run through Footwater up into St Mary's, and that is how Youngster's got himself up into P5. Missed that off camera. But Spinky in return maybe trying to come back at him in a short order here. We will wait and see. But what we can see up front, hold on a second, Pingo Phone has got the move done on Notnats. Let's see where that happened. So coming up in towards Woodcock Corner then, did he go for the cutback before the chicane? It looks as though Pingo sized it. Oh, or did he just go for the lunge? Well, as they went into the corner, it looks as though Pingo had a lot of momentum through the corner, and he just had the momentum to go through, and Notnats went a bit wide and had to rejoin behind him and just collected it in time. That was very close to a near fatal mistake from Notnats, and it could have seen both drivers going flying out. So great work by Pingo there to get the move done, and Notnats for catching the car and getting it back on circuit. But I don't think it's over yet in the story in the battle for P2. I think Notnats is going to be coming back with 1.5 laps remaining, and you can see he's already trying to come back. Notnats is building up that momentum, as in the rear of the camera you've got Will Becky starting to close in on these guys as well, as they've come out of Footwater up into St Mary here. It is going to be the case that Notnats is charging through, but he's not able to get enough momentum to get alongside Pingo coming out of St Mary's. So as a result, as they come up in towards the Levant corner, I think Notnats is backing off for the time being, and he's just going to bide his time and come again on the final lap. And meanwhile, we have got Youngster who's doing a similar situation where he's holding off Spinky here and doing more than enough to do so right now. As they come up towards the Levant corner, is Spinky going to go for a lunge? It doesn't look like it. Instead, it is just simply the case that, well, I say that, and I think Spinky's gone off. Spinky is off, ladies and gentlemen. He's just collected the car, so he hasn't completely binned it off into the gravel and started to make sandcastles, but that means Youngster is going to get a free run away from Spinky. But, and hold on a second, Notnats is coming back at Pingo Phone for the second place as they come out of Woodcock then, and will he be able to hold on to it to the final chicane as they come onto the final lap? We're going to have one more lap to go, and the battle for P2 will resume, with ZenQ 15.9 seconds up the road, and well, I believe Will Becky is 7 seconds behind. These two are going to fight quite a bit, but Notnats there just going for a huge send into Woodcock and making it work. And now it's all about Pingo Phone. How will he come back and try to get the position back? Now, if it's in Pingo's shoes, you've really only got 2 to 3 overtaking places here. You've got St Mary's as Spinky is coming into the pits, and I think Spinky is overdue a pit stop by the looks of things. Alternative is going for a safety stop here. But we can see that Notnats right now is doing more than enough to pull away from Pingo and hold the gap from him. So I don't think Pingo's going to be coming back and Notnats up into St Mary's, perhaps into Levant. But even then, it's going to be a huge lunge or a huge amount of momentum he's going to have to build. And I think Spinky taking that pit stop, coming back out in P6 was a safety stop. As we can see that, or it was alternatively just the right stop at the right time. But you can see that Pingo Phone has got a huge amount of momentum out of St Mary's. And is he going to go around the outside into Levant corner? And as they go into the corner, then Pingo on the outside, Notnats defending to the inside and just about holding off the charging Austrian here. And now they've got one more long run up towards Woodcock corner. Meanwhile, up front, it is ZenQ who's coming through the final corners right now, as we can see that he's lagging a little bit, and we will follow him across the line in due course. But we can see that Pingo is looking to come back at him. But meanwhile, up front, as Pingo is going to go for the move into Woodcock, it is ZenQ Meister who makes it 3 out of 3, coming across the finish line right now. Congratulations to the Polish driver. But Pingo being blocked on the inside by Notnats coming through the Woodcock corner. And will he try to go for a send into the chicane? I don't think he's got it. So as both of them come through the final chicane, Pingo's got the momentum, but will he have enough time to get him across the line? It's a drag race to the finish line, and it's going to be Pingo who just beats Notnats across the line. Anyway, what comes over in P4? Will Becky in P5, and then Youngster in P6. And behind them, it will be Spinky Bouton who's going to come home in P7. In what has been an absolutely up and down race for a lot of our drivers, but Spinky having a good result in the end. Well, it's Fussy and Fiery comes home in P7. And then Spinky in P8 by LCFC Ben in 03 and P9. Sorry folks, I can't stop laughing. And then Insubordinate in P10, the German driver, having had a very difficult night after a great qualified session, but still bringing the car home after clattering the wall. at the chicane right at the end. And as he comes across the line to complete his race, we've got one more driver to come as we see our top 10 round off, and it will be Tamer 2010 coming home last but not least of our order in EU Division 2 to round off our 3 races in the minis tonight. Congratulations to Tamer alongside all of our drivers, still hanging in there and bringing it home in P11. That's your order, folks, but congratulations to our triple winner tonight, Zenkiu Meister from Poland once again. What a cracking way to end tonight's races in the minis. Of course, we also had the unfortunate glitch of some cars mating in the pits. We will have to get the stewards down there to separate them. I mean, it's not quite spring yet, so minis should not be in heat this early on in the year, but it happens, I suppose, with the warm weather we've had in the United Kingdom over the last couple of days. But looking at our final standing, subject to any stewards' questions, it will be Zenkiu Meister, who was our winner in race 3, making it a triple of wins tonight. Pingo Phone in P2 and Notnats in P3, that drag race to the line. RN Watt coming home in P4 ahead of Will Becky in the end. And the fastest lap going to RN Watt on lap number 2, a 1:40.959. And we are going to take a quick sip of water because that was fast, furious and frantic. And we're just having a discussion down in the paddock right now where Aaron Watt is asking was he stuck in the pits, and everybody's saying a lot of drivers could not actually see him out on the circuit. And now we wait for King of the Karts. Now we're just waiting to see what's happening right now, folks. For some cracking racing tonight in all 3 races. And well, for Pingo in particular, driver of the day, personally for me, Pingo in the fact had a disastrous race 1 after waiting for a driver. Unfortunately had to retire the car and then to come from the back of the grid in race 2 to finish right towards the front and continue that momentum into race number 3. Fantastic work as we make our way out onto the circuit in our own little go-kart and try not to end up mating in the pit lane with anybody. We do not need that traction control on. And there we go, King of the Karts for EU Division 2. I don't know what it's going to be like at this circuit. That's actually not too bad. I think we can pull off a lot of grip there. Hey, starting P2 in this one. I like that. I'll take a P2 start. Oh, wait, I'm probably going to get shunted up the rear end. Whee, there she goes. Oh god, that sounds horrific, that red lining. Oh, hello guys. Oh. Oh no. Oh, there we go. Right, kart doesn't have any grip in 6th gear through there because of the camber change. You've got to remember that. Oh, hello. Well, we're going for a little holiday. We can catch up, we can catch up. Oh, flipping it. It looks really weird from such a low angle, the chicane. You just don't even see the exit wall. You just see this sort of hedge. Oh, Pies has got it wrong. Oh, just put the cart out of its misery. Flipping heck, that's not what I want to hear from its little engine. Sounds like a cry of pain. So I get the feeling we're probably not going to catch the leaders unless they take one other out. I'll take a P3 though. Yes. Just waiting for everyone to get across now. Oh, dearie me. ZenQ picking up the winning king of the karts as well. But just to let everybody know, that is really it for the racing this week. Come back in a week's time, where Tenured Frog will be presenting EU Division 1 on Monday at the same time as usual. And we will be heading to Tokyo Expressway South Inner Loop for a showdown in the Mitsubishi GTO Twin Turbos from 1991. But until then, it has been some great fun tonight. Some interesting moments, shall we say. Some not so great moments as well for some of our drivers. But still, it's been a good laugh. And, well, all of our EU Division 2 drivers, whether they're newcomers or veterans of old, all showing when they've got it what it takes to be fighting in amongst one another in round one. But how will they get on in a week's time on Tuesday at Tokyo in the Mitsubishi GTOs? You'll have to wait and find out. But until then, I've been your host, TX141. And if you have enjoyed the stream, be sure to let me know, and be sure, if you're not subscribed already or following, to follow for future streams of GT Sport. But until next time, folks, stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, stay on track. Good night.